All right, good to go, Mark.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm calling to order the Beacon Hill Architectural Commission public hearing at 5:02 p.m. on April 16th, 2026. This is the April 2026 hearing of the Beacon Hill Architectural Commission. My name is Mark Kiefer. I am the chairman, and we're joined by today by Commission Vice Chair Arian Allen, as well as Commissioners Given and Jackson. And is Commissioner Feingold with us yet?
I do not see him, no.
Okay, for the moment, Vice Chair Allen and Commissioners Given and Jackson, welcome everyone. Today, the Commission will be holding a public hearing to review applications in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, including subsequent amendments for conducting the meeting online, otherwise known as Zoom. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Beacon Hill Architectural Commission, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. In case you missed it, the hearing is being recorded, so all further conversations between commissioners should be audible to the public in attendance until the hearing has adjourned. At this point, we'd like to acknowledge any media or elected officials. I see Dan Murphy from the Beacon Hill Times. Hi, Dan. Thanks for joining. Any other media or elected officials? Don't think I see any. Certainly acknowledge you if we find you or you sign on. Let me just make one more quick check. Don't think I see any.
See him either, Mark. Yep.
Okay. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. We'll do that as we adjudicate each application. We'll give you a heads up that at a certain point in the discussion, we will pause to take public comment. At that point, we'll let you know. And if you want to be heard on the record, you will need to raise your hand, as it were, in the application via the Zoom meeting platform, for which there is handy instructions on the screen right now. There's a button at the bottom of your screen that hopefully says raise hand, and that's what you'll need to do. Just as a further heads up, Nick will need to unmute you and also turn on your camera. So don't panic if you are, particularly for applicants, if you are trying to tune in when it's your turn and you can't seem to get your camera working. Nick will turn that on when the time comes. And again, we will give you a heads up when we get to the point in each adjudicating each application when the time comes for public comment. Okay, so I think that is it for the preliminaries. So why don't we turn to the first item on the agenda, which is the ratification of the March hearing minutes, the March 19th, 2026 public hearing minutes. Commissioners, any comments, questions, concerns, edits, revisions? Okay, hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the ratification of the public hearing minutes of the Beacon Hill Architectural Commission from March 19th, 2026?
I motion to approve.
Do I hear a second? Okay, I'll second. Oh, thank you. We will vote. Nick, who was the second? Was that Ralph?
That was Ralph, yes.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, thank you, Commissioner Jackson. We will vote. Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Given?
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson?
Aye.
And Commissioner Kiefer votes aye. So the motion is approved, ratification of the March minutes. Thank you. So we'll now turn to the first item, the next item on the agenda, which is violation review. There's one item, which is 32 Myrtle Street. Is there a representative for 32 Myrtle Street, which I believe is Lalit Verma? Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that.
Hello.
I see Commissioner Feingold has joined the hearing. Let the record reflect, please. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mo. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late.
It's all right. We're just getting started. One more time for 32 Myrtle. Lalit Verma, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. 32 Myrtle.
Gonna check the records here. Let's see. We spoke to him last week. Yeah, he did get my email. So yeah.
All right, why don't we move on and we'll come back if that respondent shows up. Okay, moving on to design review. The first application on the design review hearing agenda is 19 West Cedar Street, Michael Liebman. If you are here, why don't you raise your hand so Nick can find you and turn you on?
There he is.
Oh, there we go.
Can everyone hear me?
Hi, Michael. I
Hi.
can hear you,
Hi, Nick.
Michael. Hey,
Okay, I'm here.
Hi, Michael.
Hello.
Welcome. Thanks for coming in. Do you want to just give us a brief summary of what you are proposing? We've got your application, but let's just have a brief summary so we can start the discussion.
Sure. The project is 19 West Cedar, along with 21 West Cedar. There are two 1850s 5-story Italianate brick townhouses, 15 to 20 years later than its neighbors, which probably explains the 2/2s and the decorative oriel. We have been extensively renovating the building. It was renovated in the late 70s to early 80s as a condominium. Fortunately, the exterior of the building has remained primarily intact, save for the 5th floor dormer windows, which were replaced probably, given how they look, probably in the late 80s when the building was renovated. Additionally, at some point along the way, the window on the right-hand side, the window on the right-hand side was likely added to the building, particularly the way they added it, will come up in the window discussion. But the windows up on that 5th floor are 1/1s. As I said, we're completely renovating the building, including new electrical, plumbing, fire sprinkler, which includes fire sprinkler on the roof, which will then go to the later issue of the access way, in addition to our desire to put a roof deck on there. Is that enough of a summary?
I think so. So let's see. Why don't we, unless Nick, you've got some preference here as to what we start with. Why don't we start with the dormer windows?
yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, and I think as we can kind of tell even from the street, these are not original features of the building, nor are the actual windows that are installed in these openings. They are even less original, newer, and I understand they're vinyl. So we appreciate the proposal to replace them in general with the wood window, as I understand it. I think the only question for us is what should the muntin pattern be? As you mentioned at the outset, this building clearly, like so many buildings of this vintage, underwent Victorianization, if you can call it that, probably in the sometime after it was built in the latter half of the 19th century, where the oriel was added and the windows likely were changed from 6/6 to 2/2, as we see on the lower floors. So I think the question here is what should we do about the dormers? Should they be 2/2 like the rest of the building, 6/6 like the neighbor, or 1/1 like they are now? You know what? I think maybe unless there are any questions about the particulars here. So just to recap, Michael, you're going to replace the dormer windows. You're
Correct.
going to add a roof deck and an access hatch. And what else is it?
The
Yeah,
life
that's
safety equipment.
Well,
yeah.
You want to change the windows on the main facade?
the main facade windows are intact and are in good shape, and we've checked the operation and they're all working fine.
Yeah.
So
So
we're
why
not
don't-
planning on changing any of those.
Okay. Any other questions like that about exactly what's proposed here? I think it's just there's some life safety appurtenances, but generally the two windows on the dormers and then the roof deck and hatch, right?
Yes.
So unless there's any clarifying questions from the commission, want to go ahead and take public comment. so we can have the benefit of that in our further discussion. If you want to be heard on the record, so now is the time for public comment. If you want to be heard on the record, please raise your hand using the button that hopefully says raise hand. That's hopefully at the bottom of your Zoom panel, and Nick will acknowledge you and in turn you on.
Okay. First up, it looks like we have is Joe. Joe, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
You
Yes,
can, yeah.
please go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Joe Berman. My wife and I own 17 West Cedar, which is directly to the right of the project as you look at the property from the street. Our concern is the roof deck. Our building is 4 stories. The top floor, the 4th floor, has several skylights, including we have 2 full baths on the 4th floor, both of which have skylights. And as you look up through some of these skylights towards 19 West Cedar, you can, almost reach out and touch where I think the roof deck would be. So we have some real serious privacy concerns about having a roof deck at 19 West Cedar. In addition to the noise and disruption and the construction, obviously that would be a problem. And people up on the roof deck can look right down into our backyard and all of that. So that's an invasion, that's a real privacy issue for us as well. But for us, it's really, I think, on top of all of those issues, the most serious one would be, people can just look from the roof deck right into our house, including into 2 bathrooms. So we would be opposed to having a roof deck there.
Thank you, Joe. Next up we have is Rochelle. Rochelle, go ahead.
Beacon House Civic Association, absent documentation of the proposed replacement windows as non-historic, we request verification of them being beyond repair to satisfy guideline D1, as well as shop drawings of existing conditions to satisfy guideline D12. While guidelines C3 and C4, which do not allow new roof decks or hatches visible from a public way, require us to oppose the proposed roof deck and hatch, we suggest the proposed design mirrors that at neighboring 21 West Cedar, though with the traditional black iron railing, and constitutes a similar or lesser visual impact, and numerous other decks are more visible in virtually every other direction. End of comment.
Thank you, Rochelle. Okay. Next we have Jean. Jean, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jean Cook. I'm here with my husband, Robin Cook. We own 16 Lewisburg Square. So we see out the back of our house very well the 19 Cedar, West Cedar. One of the questions we have, we did, Nick, thank you for sending the plans. We were able to see the hatch and I think the railing around the hatch. One of my questions is whether that same railing design is planned to surround the entire deck. I'm interested in knowing what the railing is going to look like. My husband, Robin, do you have?
No, that's a major question.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Jean and Robert, and we'll discuss the railing in just a moment here. So thanks for your patience.
Okay.
Thanks. All right. Let's see. Okay. All right. We are all set. I'm not seeing any other public comment. Let me just double check email. There are no public comments that came through email, Mark. So we'll close it for this application. I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, so we'll close public comment. Thank you all for your comments. Let me first just quickly address the the concerns I think raised by, it was Joe, I think the next door neighbor of Butter. I appreciate the concerns. Obviously, this is a dense neighborhood and we're all living quite close together and so forth. So these are natural concerns that arise, particularly under circumstances like these when perhaps spaces that hadn't been used for such purposes are part of a renovation, particularly a renovation of this magnitude. I think, unfortunately, though, our jurisdiction is quite limited and our purview is narrower still. And so issues with respect to privacy or other impacts, however real they might be, such as noise and privacy concerns and so forth, are simply not within the purview of this commission to adjudicate. Again, our jurisdiction is limited by our enabling legislation. So we really can't use as a basis for a determination those other incidental impacts, again, as real as they might be in some cases. And I will just tell you for the record, it may be little consolation, but there have been instances in the past, not all that distant past, in which the metes and bounds of the jurisdiction of the commission have been challenged in a legal forum. And so we are particularly sensitive to making sure we maintain the strict limits of our jurisdiction as they are defined in the enabling legislation. We will get to the subject of the railing because the design of the railing is relevant within that jurisdiction because it is visible, and it is relevant within our narrow purview because it does implicate architectural and historical appropriateness. So we'll come back to that because I did say before, but let me just make clear, our limited jurisdiction is what can be seen from a public way, a street or a sidewalk, or the Boston Common, for example, Fiedler Footbridge, those kinds of things, a public way. So we can't adjudicate a particular portion of an application based on something that is only visible from outside the public way. As Nick has nicely demonstrated here, as it turns out, the roof deck railing portion of this application, as well as the dormer windows, are visible from a public way. So just a reminder to the commissioners and a clarification for the public, we need to adjudicate this application on the merits based on what we can see, which in the case of the roof deck is relatively little, as Rochelle pointed out in her comments. So with that, let's go back to the discussion of the dormer windows. I think it was demonstrated, and Nick, am I correct, that the windows that are there now are vinyl, right? So
vinyl or very, very cheap wood. There's
Yeah.
nothing historic about them whatsoever.
Okay, so I think it really comes down to what's the appropriate design configuration, as it were. And this is a very common thing that comes up as these buildings are modified over time. The Muntin pattern will change because of what prevailing stylistic preferences at the time. So I think, again, the neighboring buildings are all 6/6 because that's probably what this would have been originally. But this building was changed to 2/2, like a lot of buildings in the latter 19th century, latter half of the 19th century. These dormers were replaced, we think, much more recently, the dormer windows, that is, with 1/1. So let me just open it to the commission. I think my first instinct is, unless there's evidence that they were ever 6/6, perhaps we shouldn't conjecture too much and return them to that state, because that would kind of create an incongruity with the rest of the facade. It's clearly a Victorian renovation that the building presents as now, and I think pretty emphatically with that oriel window and so forth. So to my mind, but I'm happy to discuss further, I think with respect to the dormers, it's either 2/2 or it's just replacing what's there 1/1. Commissioners, any strong feelings one way or the other about that?
I think the position that you've taken is the right one. It should be consistent with the rest of the building, or leave as is. So Victorian 2/2, it would make sense if this is an addition. Why they went to 1/1, I don't know. But
right, it's probably very cheaper.
Either keep as is, and simply upgrade the quality of the window, or have it in concert with the rest of the building.
Right. Now, Nick, you had a concern, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think there's always the issue here of like what makes sense in terms of the proportion of the opening and so forth. And as
Yeah.
you can see in this image here, I mean, the 2/2s kind of work rather naturally with the rest of the sod because the proportions are, pretty emphatically tall, as it were, to use a not very technical term. But these windows on the dormers are quite a bit more square. So Nick, you kind of feel they should be 1/1, is that right?
I do think they should be 101 because of the size of the windows. I think and they're all of the panes would end up being the exact same dimension, so two squares over two squares, and that would be something we would traditionally see in a colonial revival, and not something in this style of architecture from the Victorian period. So I think what's there. I think is probably the best. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay. Yeah, colonial revival or 80s postmodernism.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, Graves or Robert A.M. Stern here. Okay. Anyone else have a thought? I'm persuaded, I think, by that argument. What is, forgive me, what is proposed, Nick, or the applicant?
1/1s.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's what you're asking for. Okay.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes.
At my recommendation, yeah.
yeah. And so, okay, I think I'm fine with that. Sounds like Ralph is okay with that. Any dissenting views?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Feingold. Annette? Arian, you want to weigh in?
No,
You're fine
I'm
with
in
that?
agreement, and so far.
Okay, very good. So we have consensus on that. So let's then move to the roof deck. We heard a public comment from Civic Association about that. Again, we need to not concern ourselves with the issues of privacy and so forth that were raised earlier, as real as they may be, because it's out of our jurisdiction. But you can see this, as Nick showed earlier, from a stretch a little bit of West Cedar in the block toward Chestnut Street. I went out and looked at this, but as Rochelle pointed out, I think for really any of the relatively short portion of West Cedar Street from which you can see this, you can see not one, but several roof decks for which the visibility and indeed visual impact is, I think, at least in my judgment, significantly greater than this one. So in my view, the visual impact of the proposed roof deck as illustrated by the mock-up here is de minimis, and I'm okay with it. Just by one example, so if you go down to the intersection of Mount Vernon and West Cedar, you can still see it down there. But then if you just look to your right, the building right on the other side of the street on West Cedar Street has a length of railing that's right up against the street side facade of the building. And you can see the whole thing. As one example, if you go up to the intersection of Mount Vernon and you look up Mount Vernon, you see one or two, again, a larger portion of a larger roof deck that's more prominently visible, and is probably more prominently visible from a longer stretch of street and so forth. So, applying the basic principle here of, fairness or reasonableness, I think I'm okay with this. Yeah, thanks, Nick. So, and again, just to be clear, for both the benefit of the public and the commission, that's a mock-up made of 2x4s, and I believe, well, let's clarify this right now, since the issue was raised by the back about the Cooks. Is it a thin black iron railing that's proposed, or is it what's proposed a wooden railing like we see, I think that's there now or on the adjacent building?
I think it's in the presentation. Do you want to go to that?
Yes.
As simple a black metal railing as possible.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, here it is. Yes. Forgive me. I did look at this before, I promise. I just couldn't remember.
No, that's okay.
Okay. And then so it's a thin iron railing, which is, typically what we would prescribe as a standard treatment here. And there is an access hatch as well.
Yes.
And I think we saw. So where, if at all, is that reflected in the mock-up?
So the reason why it was mocked up, but you would need a very strong telescope. Sorry, I apologize for that being upside down. Okay, thank you.
Oh,
If you take the where it says roof hatch and you look at the very upper triangle piece
Right.
right to the left of it, a small portion of that little triangle is visible, about whatever it is, about 150 feet down the street, right around there, a tiny piece, which when you were walking by, you probably couldn't even see.
Okay.
So there's a little peak, but at that point, you can't even see it. You have to be further away
Yeah.
in order to actually see the tiniest piece of it.
is the
Okay.
roof, is,
Yeah, right
pardon,
in that little zone there, but further back.
Okay.
is the roof hatch already there, or this is in the proposal too?
This is in the proposal. So there's a couple of issues. I'll keep it
Let me see, will you show me a roof plan, please?
Sure.
Is there such a thing? You
There
have-
is a roof plan.
Goodness.
Oh, go back. Yeah, keep going. It's down near the end. Okay, back one. There we go. Okay. So, so
Oh, stop, please.
okay, there we go. So the uh the roof hatch, the existing staircase is below that roof hatch area. Sorry, the proposed roof hatch. The original roof hatch is not is closer to the middle of the space and would not be accessible by the fire department. My sprinklers, I'm putting in a full sprinkler system. The sprinkler system actually goes to the roof. And so the sprinkler system, which will be out of sight, it's not visible, but it's going, so in order to get reasonable access to the roof, we created a set of stairs. If you go back to the section, please.
No, I don't need to. I just want to see the plan.
Okay. You can see
Now,
it's,
so my question is, I get around to the question of visibility, which has been debated intensively over the 3 years I've been a member of this commission. And I don't believe we've ever allowed a visibility of a roof deck without asking people to push it back, for example. Push the 16-foot 8 dimension, you have a square, but the one that go with moving away from just push the roof deck back a couple of feet so that you won't see it at all from the street. I just raised that question to the commission and the chair, that we have, as I said, debated this ad nauseum before and never allowed anyone to have a view except a de minimis one here and there. So I just invite other comment on that.
Well, I wouldn't, respectfully, I wouldn't characterize it that way in my experience. I think indeed, we have debated this question. It comes up often because roof decks come up often. I don't believe, I wouldn't characterize it as we've never allowed a roof deck without some concession of attempting to move the railing and so forth. I think there have been a number of cases where we have explored that possibility. There are some subset of that number of cases where the applicant has been able to adjust the plan to reduce the visibility, in some cases to varying degrees. But I think there's any number of cases where in the first instance, when the roof deck was demonstrated to be of limited visibility, let's just say, on the one hand, and moreover, of visible to a degree that was equal to or less than other similarly situated and previously approved decks, we have allowed them. So I think the rule of reason that has prevailed in practice, regardless of what the guidelines say or regardless of how they've been interpreted, the rule of reason that has prevailed is that we are trying to, yes, minimize the visual impact of the roof deck, but take into consideration the record of decision in the past of the commission, such that we have we make a determination that's reasonable and defensible, both in light of the guidelines, but also in light of prior decisions and their respective visual impact or visibility and so forth. And so,
Well-
there are examples, that come to mind even relatively recently in the last year, where we've approved them as proposed because they were less visible. We just cut to the quick here. They were less visible than other previously approved roof decks, sometimes in the immediate vicinity of the subject property. So that is, I think, where I was coming from. When you look at this and you see just how much of it is visible from how much of the public way, and compare it to how much is visible from how much of the public way of other roof decks that we have approved, I find that the visual impact of this, the visibility, is less than or equal to, and I think significantly less than
Well-
a number of them.
Well, Mr. Chairman, why not just ask them to push it back a couple of feet so they don't even have the problem to deal with?
Is it okay if I make a comment?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Actually, before you make a comment, I have
Yeah.
to say, I've been sitting here listening the whole time. And Mo, I'm so glad you said what I was thinking, because it seems like that would definitely calm down the whole situation. And we would be less of a view by the public, correct? If it was pushed back a little?
So if I could respond to that.
Uh-huh.
One of two things. First, Nick already beat you to that one. My original proposal had it 4 feet back, and he said, and perhaps maybe I should have listened to him and should have proposed it at 4 feet, which, so if you take the angle at which you could see this deck, which is, I don't know, 200 feet, 250 feet, if you change the step back of this, the change in the visibility is de minimis. I took Nick's suggestion and already moved it back to 6 feet from 4 feet. And also with respect to my neighbor's issue of privacy, I've stepped this back such that the only people that see this, and it will only happen when there are no leaves on the trees, will be down past, you're nearing Chestnut Street, or was it Mount Vernon Street, where you actually will see a small piece of this. So with all respect, I think we've done a lot to try to minimize this, including the placement of the deck on the roof itself, how far back from the front. We're not even close to being visible from any.
I just don't accept that argument, but that's my view.
Well, Mo, I mean, again, respectfully, I think, in order to make this discussion most productive, I went out and looked at this yesterday, and I can affirm what the applicant has just said, which is that when you walk down the entire length of West Cedar Street from which this is visible, the apparent height of the railing doesn't really change. And so, I'm not a geometry whiz, but I've been doing this long enough to know that implies that you're probably not going to get much mileage visibility wise out of pulling the thing back. And we've had a directly analogous situation around the corner up on Mount Vernon Street, where the issue is visibility from across Lewisburg Square at Pinckney Street. And they did move it back significantly, and it changed a little, but not all that much. So I think, again, if we want to have a productive conversation about this, number one, you got to go out and look at this stuff. And number two, you got to read Nick's comments. The first sentence of Nick's staff recommendations is, quote, "Staff has worked with applicant to come up with a plan for an approvable roof deck. After several versions, the original head house has been reduced to a hatch and minimally visible from a vantage point at the intersection of West Cedar and Mount Vernon Street." So I think, again, I can affirm the applicant is correct in saying that a not insignificant effort has already been made to reduce the visibility of these roof structures from what was originally contemplated and submitted at the time of the application was first made. And so I
Okay.
say
I
that's
would say that as far as what Nick puts in the notes, that's great. But since this is a meeting and it's recorded, so everyone can know exactly what's what. I always love it when we actually ask Nick, and so it's for everyone to hear. Especially if they go back and they look at the recordings, it makes it very, very clear.
I'll,
Nick, so yeah, to make it easy, Nick,
Arian, I'll just say that Mark literally just read my recommendations verbatim.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
and what I'm saying respectfully, Arian, is you got to read them too.
Well, no, it's not about just me reading it. Again, as I said respectfully, to have it on the recording. Because people aren't
Sure.
going to really hear it. If I'm reading it and you're reading it, they're not going to hear it in the recording.
Sure, fair enough.
Okay.
So anyway, that's I didn't mean to get exercised about this, but that's where I was coming from. I think an effort has been made to reduce the visibility of this. I think just from my own estimation, from what I've seen, that further efforts are not likely to produce a meaningful or material impact on the visibility of this thing. I don't think you can make it go away. It's not that visible to begin with. The visual impact is not that great. And so I don't know that we ought to hold this up for sort of splitting hairs over a really what might be a marginal, if not imperceptible, benefit to relocating the railing. That's my view. Anyone else? I didn't mean to talk so much. Any other commissioners have a view on this with respect to the railing?
I think the proposal looks stunningly modest relative to the sort of things that we've seen.
And the size of the roof, yeah.
Yes.
Can you and Ralph, so as not to assume too much, how does that translate into your view of the proposal in terms of where you come down? Should we approve it?
I think it should be approved.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Anyone else? Annette?
Yeah, I agree with Ralph.
Okay, I'm not sure we've got unanimity, but it sounds like we're stumbling toward a consensus at least, perhaps a weak one. And Nick, with respect to the third item, which was sort of life safety equipment, I think you had a note, forgive me if I'm confusing a couple applications, but I think you had a couple of detailed notes about the particulars on that.
Yeah, I wanted to have a conversation, and Michael will be able to provide some of the limitations. So typically we don't we would just throw this on admin if I was comfortable with the location. But the sensitivity of this lower level of the facade is there's a lot of details here. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody was on board with the location that Michael and I decided would be the most appropriate location. Michael, did you want to expand on
Sure.
some of the limitations of the request?
Sure. Obviously, none of us like what the fire department asked us to do, ever. That being said, in a prior proposal, I had tried, again, working with Nick, try to get the devices located in the least negative place we could find, which actually, as it turns out, actually doesn't work. I can't get the pipe out the wall where I had hoped to get it. The X's that you see now are where Nick and I discussed that it would physically work and be as make the least amount of impact possible. Plus, there's one other device, but this is the plumbing part of the issue is where the X's are. Then we have the bell, the electric bell, and Nick and I have talked about sort of 4 different possible locations. One being where the arrow X is now. 2, that was the place that we had hoped to get it in the first place. 3 was, I think, the other side, the far right side, and then 4. So what what I plan to do for that is to work with the alarm company and the fire department to come up with the least negative place on the entire facade that we can find.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And commissioners, for the commission's and the public's benefit, it's like a standpipe connection for the sprinkler. That's the thing on the bottom,
There's a standpipe and a drain
and a drain.
on
Okay.
the bottom, and then there's a bell, which can't be down. I would ideally I would have it down in that same location, which is what you see in many parts of the neighborhood.
Yep.
Problem
Yeah.
is that's not to code.
Yeah.
So it has to be, they have to be able to see this, I think, from the Longfellow Bridge.
Yeah.
So it has to be higher. And all those things I will try to work through with all the parties and Nick to try to find the best possible place for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, this is unfortunately a challenge that we're stuck with. And again, we of course appreciate the importance of these things for life safety purposes. And frankly, ultimately, if the fire department can get to these places expeditiously, that's good for preservation too, but they're really ugly and they're prominent. So we got to minimize that as best we can within the codes we're forced to deal with. It sounds like, I mean, I am, commissioners, chime in here, but I think I'm comfortable that we're all on the same page here in terms of what we want to accomplish. So personally, I would be okay delegating this to Nick, particularly since it sounds like the applicant's going to need at least one more conversation with the fire department before we know what the final proposal is.
That's correct.
Yeah. So does
Mark,
anyone? Yeah.
Ralph
I
might
would-
have a, yeah.
I would stress keeping all of the fired elements within the rusticated base. So the one that migrates up into the brick area, I would not be in favor of. But if you can manage to keep them all within the rusticated zone, to my mind, that's a better solution.
Yeah, I think I like that. Yeah. Right.
That's where we had it originally, so I'm perfectly fine doing that. Nick and I were just discussing all of the different possibilities.
And I hate to bring up how different is the size of the windows on the first floor from the dormer windows?
Significantly.
Yeah, much
I
taller.
mean,
They're much
yeah.
taller.
Okay. I understand you've already made your choice, but I feel as if when I look at the dormer windows, they seem so sort of inferior to the windows below as 1/1s. But you've made your choices.
Well, I guess we could revisit that, but unless you feel really strongly, why don't we just in the interest of time here?
Whatever.
Yeah.
I just feel it as if the opinion needed to be heard.
For sure. Yes, appreciate that. One last question with respect to the standpipe connection. I'm almost afraid to ask. They at least used to let you do that in brass. Is that still true?
That's what we're doing.
Great. Okay. Now I'm relieved.
No, yes.
Especially since that's so, right on the street there.
Yep.
Great. Okay. And is there a sign like the FDC connection sign too that's got to go?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And that goes next to the standpipe thing?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It is what it is. Okay.
I wrestle with this all the time in the South End,
Yeah.
the South End Historical Society. So I mean, I understand. Believe me, I get it.
Okay, so to recap then, with Commissioner Jackson's guidance, with respect to keeping it all in the rusticated zone, I like that, which is to say, just for clarity, the brown part below the second floor with that, it looks like sort of, large stones. I'm fine with just delegating the final placement of these things to Nick. And again, given Commissioner Jackson's further guidance on this, anyone else, is everyone else comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable with that.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Mark, for guidance, because just so I understand, I had concerns because that was a character defining feature, the rustication, and I'm concerned. I mean, do we mount it in the middle of one of the simulated stones? Do we mount it through one of the joints? Like, what's what do you recommend?
Yeah.
Below the arc, the X, yes, where your cursor is now, it should be below the architrave. It should be within the rusticated area, not, I can't draw on your sketch, but below the rustication, below the architrave, somewhere
Okay.
in there. Your idea of putting it in the middle between
Yeah.
the two windows, stacking them,
Yeah.
if the lower ones and the upper ones stacked in the middle zone, is the sort of way I would try to sort of mitigate
So
the,
here.
take advantage of the symmetry.
Can I suggest that what we were trying to do is hide the darn thing as much as possible? And so to the extent that, which is what one of the things Nick and I talked about, was to the extent that we can hide it on either corner or side,
I
that
like that. Yeah.
So
that's our goal.
I appreciate your viewpoint, but that belt course is an important element of the facade.
No, I mean, the height of it is fine. I mean, bringing it down to the next level, down one level. I'm
Yes,
completely on board with that. It was more
fine.
left or right.
What
Yeah,
if-
I think I'm persuaded with the same argument that the closer it is to the door, the more you're likely to notice it. So I kind of like putting it as far away from the door. And Ralph, just to clarify what Nick was just asking, it's an unusual situation with this, not unheard of, but uncommon, this rustication. So if it was just a brick facade, you'd say, well, okay, the usual thing, put the wiring, and the mounting in the mortar, not the brick. But here you have these deep, chamfers in between the panels, let's call them. And so I think what Nick is asking is, do you mount it right in the middle of the panel or in between two panels in this groove?
No, wait a minute, everybody. I want a moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
X is, why not just drop it one block and put it in the middle of the vertical joint in that block? No, not while move the cursor. No. This is the block is not continuous. It's a split block.
Yeah.
block
Okay.
down.
So
Put the joint through the vertical part of that joint, and let it be what it is. And
Can it-
and I would to the aspirant, I wouldn't bemoan the life safety feature that is required, because the result of all this is that there are extraordinarily few fires in the city because of lots of warning and life prevention requirements.
Mo, I sense that you said that it should be on a course below the one it's shown in. Am I right or wrong?
That's
Yeah.
correct. Where the
Can we-
vertical.
Where the joint,
vertical.
the rusticated vertical joint occurs.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So
And-
drop it down.
Yeah. And can we
Yeah.
still do that, Michael, over on the right?
Again, I'll be whether it's in the middle of a block or in the joint. That's what I'm interested in hearing. We're gonna. That's as far as.
I don't think it's an argument. Based on. I'm sorry, I'm in an argumentative mood because the chairman has got my. Just put it through the vertical joint so you don't go through the face of the stone.
Right.
And the gadget sits wherever it's going to sit because the gadgets will change over time.
Okay. So Nick,
Fair
is that
enough.
enough guidance from us?
I think so.
I
Through
think
the
so.
vertical joint, I'm hearing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll try to, make it go away as much as possible.
Yes.
We know, that the standpipe and the sign go on the bottom and the bell goes up top.
Yeah.
Maybe far away from the door as possible is good. below the sort of belt course, and then in between the two bricks panels.
Nick, if you draw an X on the other side,
Yeah,
right
yeah,
down
like
there,
right there. Yeah, right there.
So that's that looks like to be number one
Yeah,
choice. Number two choice is the one next to the door, I would think.
yeah,
Number three would be in the middle between the two windows.
yeah. I think that's fair. And again,
Fair?
I think what we're moving toward is just understanding you got to go back to the fire department, so we can't be 100% confident in where it would ultimately wind up. I think we'll delegate it to Nick with that direction. Um, to just work with you, and you work with the fire department to finalize where it goes, where they go.
That would address Ralph's just that would be right over the top in over the top of the other devices in the third X. So maybe everybody will be a little happier.
That's just
Yeah.
We'll see.
a thought.
So, okay, it sounds like Nick's got enough to go on, and unless anyone's uncomfortable delegating to him, he's got direction now, which is helpful. Thank you, Commissioners Feingold and Jackson, for that. That was actually a worthwhile discussion, I think. Okay, and that's it, right? So quick recap, it's 2 dormers, it's a roof deck railing and hatch, which is, you can barely see the hatch, and it's life safety equipment is, okay, I will move that the application be submitted, approved as submitted with the following provisos. That, let's see, with respect to the, let me back up and say, in light of the limited visibility of the roof deck railing, and in particular, the roof deck hatch, from only a limited portion of one portion of the public way, and its visibility and visual impact being significantly less than that of similarly situated roof decks previously approved by the commission in the vicinity, that the application be approved as submitted with the following provisos: that with respect to the dormer windows, they be 1/1, all wood windows, no Lily glass, and that with respect to the life safety equipment, that they are approved in concept with the final location of each of the elements to be approved in advance by staff, and final drawings indicating their location be submitted to staff prior to construction. I didn't miss anything, Nick?
No, you got it all.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second,
Okay, we will vote. Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Feingold,
Okay, aye.
Commissioner Given,
Aye.
and Commissioner Jackson,
aye.
and Commissioner Kiefer votes aye. Okay, the application is approved. Michael, you'll get a letter from Nick summarizing our determination. If you have any questions, as always, just follow up with Nick directly. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you. As far as the administrative stuff, that I don't present at that, right? Is that
Right. In fact, you don't even need to stick around for that if you don't want to.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you. Okay. Thank you all.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is 90 Revere Street. Is there a representative for 90 Revere? I think I saw Guy Grassi, his name pop up earlier. I think he's the proponent there.
Hey, Guy.
There he is.
How are you?
Good. Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, it says I'm unable to
Yep.
start
I
my
got you.
Oh,
I
okay.
got you. You should be able to do now.
Got it. Still can't even turn my video on.
There
we
you go.
Hi, hi everyone. Yeah, if I could share my screen, I'll
Go for it.
do that. All right, can you all see it now?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. All right. Good evening. Thank you for hearing us. This is a project at 90-94 Revere Street. It's on the corner of Myrtle up the hill. And it's I forget the era. It was built in, I think, 1880s. It was renovated in the early 1900s. and the windows were replaced then. It's an apartment building, or was an apartment building. It wasn't a single family home. And it's actually a pair of buildings that have been interconnected, and that's been done for some time. But and we're renovating them as I think it's 4 apartments inside total. The work before you tonight is just the roof deck, proposed roof deck heat pumps, some repairs to the exterior lintels, restoration of them, and an intercom. I think the rest is Nick has kindly recommended for administrative review. Just walking.
Sorry, Guy, the storefront window also. Did you say
I'm
that?
sorry, correct. The
Yeah.
storefront window. I forgot that. And there's a window on this window actually right here on the left. There was a window probably, and we're proposing to restore it. So this is a photograph of 1.5 of the buildings. So you can see the left-hand side building and then the right-hand side building here. The interesting thing here is that what we think was some kind of a more decorative lintel has been poorly patched and repaired. You can see what we think was the original lintel on the side, and here it is here. So we assume that this was the historic lintel, or at least back to that earlier renovation in the early 1900s. Other than that, the building is, needs a lot of work, needs a lot of restoration and everything else, which we're doing. This is a view from Myrtle Street, because Myrtle Street sort of turns the corner when it comes off of here and goes up the hill. And so you can go up Myrtle a bit and see it. So this is the back side of our building. And then these are the backs of buildings on West Cedar Street. And there's actually a garden here on the back of one of the West Cedar Street buildings. This is telephone stuff. We'd love to get rid of that. We'll do what we can to clean that mess up, but it's there. All the surface wiring we'll get rid of that we can. That's ours anyway. This is a floor plan of the building, just showing the exterior. This is that storefront system here. That was, I'm not sure when whether that was original to the building or not. It was hard to tell. It's kind of an interesting little storefront with its own door that we're restoring. We would like to replace the window just because it's old and in tough shape. This opening right here is
6 o'clock.
This is that boarded up window that we're proposing to replace with a new window. And then you just see the rest of the plan. It's just kind of an unusual configuration, this parallelogram. Everything else in here has been administratively approved. This is the roof plan. Let me try to show you a little better. There we go. So this is Revere Street, and this is Myrtle as it turns the corner and wraps around. So we've held the deck in from all edges. There's been a mock-up constructed. It's been up for about a week. I have some photos of the mock-up. It's just about impossible to see any of this. There's heat pumps back here. These are existing head houses that we're restoring that remain, and then the roof deck. So and before you is these heat pumps and the roof deck railing system, which has been mocked up. The only place that we can see it from, if you have really good vision, is when you go down Revere Street all the way down almost to across Charles Street on your way towards the Store Drive. It's just barely visible over the roofs of some of the buildings from way down there. But I'll show you pictures of all that. There's an elevator head house, which is only 3 feet high. You can't see any of that. You don't even see the head houses from the street. And again, the roof deck railing system is well inboard of anything that you can see. Right next to us are the buildings on West Cedar Street, the corner of West Cedar, which is really why you can't see any of this, because they're almost as tall. This is a cross section through it. You can see the roof sort of dips down, which is one of the reasons the deck isn't as high as you would normally expect. And there's sort of a parapet that projects up with this cornice line around it, helps hide a lot of this roof deck. here are the elevations. This is the storefront window. We were actually trying to get an operable section in there because this is going to be an apartment. And Nick had advised us that he didn't think it was realistic to request approval to get an operable window in there. So we've filed for it to be a fixed window, just to match the existing, but so it would match all the details on the window. The door's being restored, that's here. This is this blanked off window that was there. We're just putting in a 6-light window in that opening. And then the lintels we're proposing to restore out of a mimic material to look like the ones that are on the side, on the Myrtle Street side. And then up above, we're removing one of the skylights. We're replacing the other skylight on the head house and replacing the siding material with copper. That's not visible, but just wanted to show you that. And then the roof deck railing system is a very simple railing system, wraps around the whole deck. And then we have the Myrtle Street elevation. And so you can see we're removing all the grates and cleaning up some of the stuff that's here. There's louvers here that we're fixing. And then up here, you can see the roof deck railing system, and then the heat pumps are beyond, because it's parallelogram. They're actually sort of behind the roof deck railing, just because of the geometry. And then this is the Myrtle Street elevation. Again, you see the railing system and the head house beyond, and then these are the heat pumps back in this corner, which is about the hardest place to see on the roof. And again, that's all been mocked up. And then other than that, the window details, we're proposing the roof deck railing system. I can go to the mock-up photos. So these are a series of photos. This is where I thought it might be visible from, but it's not. This is our building right here, way back in there. This is the building on the corner of West Cedar. And that's what happens, is that even because you're going downhill, this building's 1 story shorter, but it blocks your view of the roof deck. As you get further down, the roof deck is this way, is to the right. But again, if you get far enough away, you're actually, looking over this roof. So when you get down closer to Starwood Drive, you see just a little tiny bit of it from up above. This is a picture from the corner of West Cedar. So as you go around the corner, it would be theoretically possible to see the deck, but there's a chimney right here on our neighboring building, and then the deck starts beyond that. So the deck's actually back here someplace. So that railing is, again, it's not visible from this location.
Guy, I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you happen to snap a photo from way down there on past Charles Street?
I don't, because you can't actually see it, unless you're zoom way in, or it's just damn near impossible. All you see is it's the little. You see several roof deck railings, and you're trying to figure out which one is ours.
I'm just curious because that was the one place I didn't look.
I just wanted you to know that.
No, appreciate that.
You can sort of almost understand where you would see it from. This is looking down Revere Street. So if you get far enough away, you can see that this little bit is visible from way the heck down there. And that's just this roof line right here blocks it. But when if you get far enough away, you have to get past Charles Street,
right?
Which is like several blocks away,
right?
But that is the roof deck. This is the picture from Myrtle. You don't see the heat pumps, which are back here, and you don't see the roof deck railing on either side. And as you go further up the hill, you still don't see it. I think I have one further up the hill. Yeah, here. So that's it again. This is about as far away. And then when you get much farther up the hill, you're behind this corner,
Mhm.
you know, so it all disappears there as well. And then I guess that's kind of it.
Okay, can I ask one clarifying question? Could you
Sure.
bring up the drawing of the elevation again of the Revere Street side? And it just with respect to the restoration of the lintels.
Sure.
And I think I understand the basic plan here is to use as a guide the Myrtle Street side in which the lintels are in better shape to restore them. Now, one thing we can't quite read on this because it's just two dimensions is I think is it the third floor or fourth floor, sort of common to this era of buildings. There's several more in the vicinity, but one row of lintels has that corbel or whatever in the middle. That's sort of three-dimensional. Is it that one?
Well, you have, you know, these are flat right now.
Yeah,
And then these are what they are. And these do, you know, there's an in and out, like these step out.
right.
Like the middle one is the deepest, and then the flankers are the shallowest. This goes in and out. So the end two and the center one are out forward. And then these just have little recessed panels and then a slight sort of cornice on it. And I can show you pictures of the ones on the side.
Yeah, that'd be helpful actually.
Go back to my photos. So here it is. And there's a little dental detail in these, and then just the recessed panel.
And then if you go above to the upper floors, one
It's
more,
this,
and then
yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So
All
that
right.
yeah,
These sort of
are
cartoon-
you replicating that on the Revere Street side?
We weren't proposing to do it. I don't know that they were ever there. I don't know why they'd be here and not there, but what's on the front seems to be old. But it's hard to tell.
Okay, I'm only asking because this is at first blush, it looks a little unusual that this one level is treated differently, but it's actually quite common. If you just go up Myrtle Street, there's 3 or 4 other buildings at least that have a very similar or analogous treatment where one level has that ornamental detail and the others don't. This is unusual because it's a corner building, so I'm not sure it's
Right.
determinative what the front would have been or the Revere Street side would have been. So I guess that's going to be one question I have is should we replicate that, replicate using as a guide the Myrtle Street side for each
Oh,
level?
actually, you know what? I didn't realize it. They're there.
Which side is this that we're looking at?
This is Revere Street.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah. You know, I don't think it showed up on our scans, but
Oh yeah, there it is.
but
Okay.
that detail, yeah, it's still there. I didn't even notice it.
Okay, so you're going to keep that is what we're
Yes.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay,
for
great.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I should
Sorry,
have
I
known
didn't
that.
remember that either. Okay.
This is the
So-
only thing that we think has been sort of pushed,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Okay. So it's to sum up, it's the restoration of the lintels, it's a deck, which I've looked at and you can't see. It's the proposed replacement of the window there, what we're calling the storefront window. It's the
Right.
addition of, or probably reintroduction of what would have been a window right on the corner in that small window. And then there's an intercom as well system.
Yes.
And
Mark, you should also just have a separate conversation about the lintels above the doors, because I
Yes.
think that will be a more challenging conversation.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So how to treat those, right? I think we're going to hear some comments about that as well. Okay, I didn't mean to cut you off there, guys. Is there anything else? I just want to clarify what's proposed so we can take public comment and then get into it.
No, that's it.
Great, thank you. Okay, commissioners, any further clarifying questions as to what's proposed? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to public comment. And if you want to be heard on the record, please raise your hand using the button at the bottom of your Zoom panel. Nick will unmute you and turn your camera on if you like. We'll take those in turn.
Okay, first up we have is Rochelle. Rochelle, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just trying to click video, so button so it doesn't work. Okay, Beacon Hill Civic Association, we offer following feedback. Roof deck, absent a mock-up, it is unclear whether the proposed roof deck will not be visible from a public way to satisfy guideline C3. If there is a mock-up in place, we do not oppose the roof deck as it does satisfy guideline C3. Lintels, we do not oppose restoration of the missing window lintels as documentation provided satisfies guideline F3, but suggests the door lintel should be modified to proportionally scale up the same central circle design as seen on nearby lintels, or that it may have been two separated lintels, one for each door, as seen on similar nearby doorways. Storefront window, absent documentation of the windows is not historic, we request verification of them being beyond repair to satisfy guideline D1, as well as shop drawings of existing conditions to satisfy guideline D12. Intercom, we do not oppose the push button doorbells as they satisfy guideline E7. But absent mounting diagrams for the intercom system, it is unclear whether the intercom is too large to fit on the narrow door trim to also meet guideline E7. HVAC, absent a mock-up, it is unclear whether the HVAC will not be visible from a public way to satisfy guideline A9. If there is a mock-up in place, we do not oppose the HVAC installation as it satisfies guideline A9. Basement window, we do not oppose the proposed basement window replacement as it is of traditional appearance and appropriate to satisfy guideline A30. Administrative review item notes, I'll note them now. Head house cladding is described on agenda as standing seam copper, but is described in the application drawings as flat seam. Standing seam is more appropriate to meet guideline A30. Not mentioned in the agenda is the removal of one of the head house skylights and a parapet, which are described in the application as not visible, but we have found to be visible. The removal of same does not meet guideline A1. The application does not address restoration of the soffit of the basement entry, which is currently a piece of unpainted plywood, and how it will satisfy guidelines A1 and A3. Actually, it's OSB, not plywood, sorry. And for the mock-up, we went around and couldn't see it, and we submitted photos. So clear there's a mock-up, but it's not visible in the comment.
Okay, Rochelle, by any chance, thank you. Do you happen to get a photo from way down on Lower Revere Street past Charles? Rochelle, sorry.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. Yeah, we do have a picture all the way from the start. And now that we've seen the photo of the black mock-up, which is unusual that it's painted like as a black piece of wood, you can see it if you zoom in behind another roof deck railing.
Behind another roof deck railing, okay.
Yeah.
If you zoom in, right. Okay. Again, I'm only asking because I did not. That was the one vantage point I didn't look from. Okay. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Rochelle. Next up we have is Phillips Street.
Yes, thank you. My name is Andrew Henson. I don't know why I'm unable to change that. Can somebody please turn my video on?
I don't know if that's necessary. Can you just leave your comment?
Sure. I am on a butter a street over. We think that this project is fantastic. We will probably see the rooftop deck out of our top story windows, but we have no problem with that. We know that that building needs love, and we thank you for taking that on. And
Yeah.
so if I'm the only abutter, there are no objections from the abutters.
Thank you. Yeah, and apologizing for not turning your camera on. We've had some issues in the past. So, okay, Mark, I'm not seeing any other comments, so we can close the public comment for this application.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to you both. So let's see, with respect to the roof deck, let me just reiterate very quickly, since I just said it in passing, I've also gone out and looked at this. and could not see it at all. In fact, so much to the point where I texted Nick and said, "Where's the mock-up?" I thought they had a mock-up, and Nick texted back, "No, we have photos. It's up there." And again, I did not actually view it from that vantage point, but I'm satisfied that Rochelle, having looked at it, and the fact that, as Mr. Grassi represented, you can only see it against the other railings and stuff that's up there. And again, you have to zoom in. And obviously, if you're actually standing on the street, the standard by which we assess these things is not what I can see if I zoom my camera in. It's what I can see with the naked eye, of course. So I'm not concerned about that. So I think we have two questions I think we want to resolve. One is the treatment of the lintel above the door. And the other is the location and specification of the intercom, because I think I was likewise not entirely sure how that was going to work. Let's take the lintel above the door first. And I think, Guy, the suggestion / question here is understanding, of course, that as it is now, you've got this one kind of lintel that sort of unornamented lintel that kind of just spans the two. But I shouldn't say entirely unornamented. It does have a clue at the bottom as to what it might have looked like originally. And if you look at other extant examples of this treatment of, buildings of similar vintage, again, right up Myrtle Street, there are a few. I think what we tend to see is individual lintels above each of the doors when you have this sort of double door configuration, understanding that notwithstanding the storefront, this likely would have been sort of a mirror image facade with sort of symmetry between on either side of the partition between the doors. So what about that? Can you tell us? Do you think it might have been that way originally, and perhaps could we entertain that instead?
I don't think they would have been individual lintels in this case because they're so close together. You can see where the brackets are. The lintels would have overhung the brackets or at least come to the outside faces of the brackets. So if they do that, then the cornice at the top, as it sort of bellies out, would end up crashing into one another. So they'd actually touch. And I don't think anybody would have done it that way. I think they would have, morphed it into one lintel versus two separate ones, because you would never want to see that top cornice piece actually in contact with another one. So I think the architectural solution was to just make it one. And that's clearly that's the stone that's underlying it. What you're seeing there now is that the brownstone's deteriorated, it's spalled, but it's still there. And it shows as one continuous one. Now I haven't chipped away at it, or tried to see what's underneath that, but my anticipation is that's one continuous brownstone lintel that runs across. And it's just when they patched it, they just didn't bother restoring the actual contours of it.
Okay. Yeah, the Civic Association has a photo that does show one building. It's stylistically not quite the same as this one. They actually do touch, or just about at the top, the two lintels. Actually, there's a couple of examples, but one of them they're not touching because they're smaller. Yeah, there we go.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it. My guess is that there was some brownstone that continued through. There could have been like it projected out a little bit and the brownstone was held, but these are very close together. I think they're closer together than these examples. You can see how close the brackets
they are.
are.
You're right. Yeah, they are closer together. Right. They're wider. So Ralph, Commissioner Jackson, did you want to weigh in?
Given the elaborateness of the lintels on this building, I wouldn't imagine they would pass up the opportunity to create dual lintels. I mean, look at how elaborate the lintel systems are. And to say that they would default to sort of merging the two, I think is, I would challenge that as that assumption.
You think it's unlikely? Well, so Guy, you were saying, you haven't chipped it away, but you think, the brownstone does carry all the way across. I mean, obviously it does now, or whatever that material is on the top
Right.
of it.
Right. I mean, I don't think they would have gone to the effort of, you know,
Oh, there we go.
of faking the brownstone between them, you know.
The
Here's an old
building is
photo.
an essay and a fetish about lentils.
Well, what's the vintage of this?
1905.
1905. Well, there it is. I think that might be our answer.
So if I could just add a comment
Yeah.
from a technical perspective. So this is I contacted the archives. This is the earliest photo that they have in their records there. This is from 1981. So you can see, and this was an application to actually do some patches on this brownstone. So that might validate that argument. What I will say is what our guidelines say and what the Secretary of Interior says is that when you don't know when you're trying to restore a historic feature, when you don't know, the best practice is to leave it as is. We have evidence that the window lintels looked as they do on that other side, but we don't have any evidence what this looks like. And unless we find it, it may just be best practice to leave it as is because we don't want to create a false sense of history. I know that's difficult for me to say, but from a professional,
it may be difficult for you to say, but I think you're right.
So Nick, is the upshot of that, would that mean, I'm sorry, let me back up for just a second. There are two dates that you just threw out. What is the date that's reflected in this photograph?
1981.
81, sorry,
Yep.
because you said 1905 before, and
Oh, sorry, that's the vintage of the building. Sorry, my
Yeah.
apologies. Yeah.
Okay, right.
Sorry, my apologies.
There wouldn't have been a color photograph, probably 1905, so I should have known better. Okay, 1981. Okay, so this is we don't know how it would have been done originally, but the kind of expression of these things that we see now dates at least to this era, 1981. Yeah, well, okay, so I guess there's a couple of choices, and let me just clarify what's proposed at the moment. In addition to this notion that you'd have one lintel that spans both doorways, is to replicate the sort of ornamental treatment that you see at the same level of the building on the Myrtle Street side, which is this more decorative element with the circle in the middle. Is that correct?
Yes. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Right. Okay. Let's see. The Civic Association had some photos, which I'm just looking at. There are other extant examples of this sort of circular pattern above doorways in the neighborhood. So, and windows for that matter. But I think well, actually, I'm looking at the Civic Association photos. So I guess the question is there any evidence that a lintel above the door? I mean, that in general, though, the treatment of the lintels above doorways is generally. Oh, here's one. Yes, they do have a photo. The Civic Association does of that exact same pattern above both. Yeah, there it is in the middle. Of the upper photo in the middle, above the door and the window. Yeah, I guess there's a tension here between, we don't have irrefutable evidence of what it would have looked like originally. On the other hand, I think it's pretty clear, well, it appears what's there suggests at least that's what's reflected on the Revere Street side is likely an economical solution to the maintenance of the building rather than a deliberate aesthetic choice, perhaps. But what do we think? In other words, I would hate to forgive the bad pun, but sort of cement in place a decision that was motivated entirely by economy rather than
In my,
consideration of aesthetic details.
I
Mr.
think
Chairman,
it's fair to say that what's there was economically motivated, not aesthetically motivated.
Yeah, Commissioner Feingold, you wanted to get
yes,
more in there?
I would say in the lexicon of historic restoration, the idea of replication or interpretation are words we don't really hear very often. But in this instance, I am not in favor of keeping it as it's shown. I am keeping of an interpretation of what should have been or might have been. There's no evidence that it was like this. There's no evidence that it wasn't like this. But I think that I think interpreting what these new lintels should be would be in the favor of the existing building, and rather than keeping it plain. And especially the idea that one lintel spanned the two doorways so that it wouldn't be broken with a little slot, which will allow for drainage and staining between them. So I would be a proponent of an interpretation of what was, and to embellish those lintels.
So you're saying, just to clarify, Mo, you are okay with what they're proposing?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
is it as simple as that?
I think it is. I just didn't want to put words in your mouth, because they are proposing to use as a guide the Myrtle Street side of the same building
Yes.
to, strong word here, but let's just say restore or replace the lintels with identical aesthetic treatment at each level.
I think it's an interpretation. And
Yeah, it is a bit of a conjecture, but I think it is well informed. And I think it is perhaps arguably the strongest possible conjecture, to the extent that it's not even, let's say, a twin building next door. It's literally the same building. In other words, we're taking the clue from the part of the building that's around the corner.
Yes. So you agree with me?
I think I do. And I think,
wow.
Believe it or not, yes.
Wait
we
a
knew we
minute.
would get there eventually. Yeah, I think, right. Again, there's a tension here. And I'm sympathetic. I appreciate the notion of, if you don't know, don't guess, and leave it alone. But again, I think the tension is, I don't think we ought to be in the business of unwittingly sort of freezing in amber something that was an economical, not an aesthetic choice, and has blunted the artistic expression and architectural expression of the building.
In the history of my work in my firm, the concepts of interpretation and replication were used appropriately on major works, and I think it's a really nice. I think it really works here to do that, and enhance the entrances, and so it's. Ralph is amused.
Well, if we're going to trot out firms, my 150-year-old firm, I'm concerned that there's a duality that is present here that I don't think should be lost. To my mind, another iteration of keeping the duality alive. You look at all the examples of close proximity and how they were discrete. And so what would one do if one is a designer of that era, given this situation? I do not think you would create a lintel condition that eliminated the duality.
Well,
what's the duality you're referring to, Ralph?
That the expression of the twinness. All the examples that you show are what's left are elements of twinness, not elements of singularity. And the examples that you show are all buildings that are premised on being in close proximity and having a discrete lintel. So I say there's another iteration of this design that should be looked at, that doesn't sort of choose to not acknowledge the way in which the original elevation is composed. This trivializes the dentils that are below the lintel. They look out of scale. So I'm not saying that one can't do something that brings these things together, but this solution doesn't strike me as being in sympathy with what the rest of the building had attempted to do in terms of the elaborateness of all the lintels. And suddenly you get to this one and you do another erasure.
Okay.
Similar to the 80.
Excuse me, I want to ask, you finish, Ralph?
Fine, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, may I have the floor again?
Yeah, please, go ahead, Commissioner Feynman.
I'd like to ask Mr. Grassi. He's been before us many times, and I have a great respect for his work and his presentations. Guy, what do you think of what you heard about this, what you were proposing, and what's your reaction to the discussion?
Well, thank you. I appreciate your comments. My guess is that it was one, but what I'd like to do is to offer up, and perhaps Nick can do this, with your consent, to show Nick 2 or 3 alternatives to how this could have been done, because it's geometry, and our drawing's a little off. The brackets are actually only 4 inches apart as I'm looking at it in the photos. So it's very tight, but if you notice, like that pillar right there, they're 8 inches apart. They're 1 full brick apart. And that allows the cornice, the top piece of the header, to actually project out like it should. Right. Now, here's a couple crashing together. We can draw the 2 or 3 different options as to how they might have been separated or joined, and show them to Nick, and perhaps Nick can make a final decision on what's the best way to move forward.
I'd really appreciate that, because I think that's the problem. And
you have to really draw it and try to work out the detail of how it turns the corner.
You can't sort of talk it. Right. Mr. Grassi, I agree.
But what if staff disagrees with the whole principle of adding them when we don't know for fact? I guess then what do I do? So
well, if that's the way, you're the one who controls the pencil.
No, that's your job. Yeah.
No, no. Oh no, you're the one who controls the decision making.
Okay, well,
I can only suggest eventually you get to make a choice. And all I'm saying is that a little more attention should be paid to the cornice and its treatment.
How about this, Nick? I think the short answer is we would make a determination with respect to the general treatment. That is to say that it's not, again, not to presume here, but if we went in this direction, to respond to your question directly, that the general direction would be to use as a guide the lintels at each level on the Myrtle Street facade, which is what they're doing. And then with respect to the final details of the lintel above the door, understanding that the basis will be the lintels on the Myrtle Street facade, that the final design be delegated to staff. In other words, I appreciate you may not agree with the concept, but just given the concept, yeah, given the concept, you would just pick the one that you feel is most in sympathy with, I think, the comments that have been made by Commissioner Jackson and perhaps Commissioner Feynman.
Yeah, it's my feeling that the lintel and the little ears below are dramatically different in scale.
Does that make sense, Nick? Are you comfortable with that?
it makes sense.
Yeah. I
I
appreciate you
just
making.
Gentlemen, I have to leave. I have a studio to teach.
Okay.
And so I'll attack someone else.
Oh my God. Okay.
Okay. Oh, he did
Just
leave. Okay.
hope there's no preservationists here tonight.
Okay. But now he's not here. Yeah, I think yeah, I think that's what we would do.
Okay.
No, that's good.
Okay. I think that's enough. Unless commissioners have further concerns about the treatment of the lintels, let's move on to let's get the intercom thing out of the way. Give us a little palate cleanser here before we talk about the storefront window. Can you just give us a little more detail, Guy, on the intercom panel and where it goes and how it works?
Sure. And we haven't, dived deeply into the exact size of the finished intercom, but they're pretty narrow.
Yeah.
So that's the product that we'd like to use. I believe it'll fit in the jamb. What we would propose to do is to cut out the wood trim that's in that jamb up to the door frame and recess that into the wood trim. And it can live between the door frame and the exterior face of the brick.
Between the door frame and the exterior face of the brick. Okay,
Because
so
the doors in swing, so the doors are set back about 8 inches from the outside face of the brick. And there's a brick mold and there's a little piece of frame that projects out, covers half of that. So we can do a better detailed drawing of how that would fit, with the exact product, and perhaps show that to Nick, and again, just to show him how it lives in that jam, but it would all live within the depth of the, between
We've
the
done that.
exterior face.
We've done that before.
yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah, we just wanted to establish, is it narrow enough that you don't have to, that it's not going to awkwardly like stick out beyond the, brick or something like that. And it
Yeah, I
sounds
mean,
like,
you could also just approve it with the caveat that it doesn't project beyond the face of the brick, right?
right. And there's still going to be a little bit of wood on the side.
It'll probably stick beyond the brick mold, but it won't go past the edge of the face of the brick.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
Okay, any other questions about that, concerns? I think we're moving toward just delegating the final design to staff. Unless anyone has any concerns about that and placement. Okay, let's talk about the storefront window. Let me actually back up and just ask, any concerns about putting the little window back where they're on the corner? Which is to say, right on the sort of ground floor level, to the left of the door, just before you wrap the corner, there's a plugged up space right there. Go back one. There it is.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be just a 3/3.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any issues with that? Okay, let's talk about the storefront window. There was, I think, a concern raised by the Civic Association and also in a note from staff that, and let me either paraphrase or just impute. I don't want to impute meaning to them, but let me just say, I think I had a similar concern. This storefront treatment, not unusual, particularly in as we get a little closer to the North Slope. A lot of buildings, maybe not on this street, but certainly, Phillip Street and neighboring streets had storefronts added to these buildings, early 20th century and so forth. So this is likely of that era. It appears to be pretty much the original storefront, as it were, the window and the door. And so I think there's a concern about potentially losing that by replacing it. Can you tell us a bit more about what do you know about the history of this thing and what kind of shape the window is really in?
I mean, it's not in great shape. It's hard to say if it's restorable or not. We haven't really dug into, you know, the ability to restore it. My guess is you probably could. It's single glazed, it's a lot of glass, and it's going to lose a lot of heat. So, you know, we would prefer to replace it all with true divided light. They're somewhat narrow profiles on the Muntins, but we believe we can do it. So, you know, again, if this is something you're interested in approving, we can, you know, we can submit the details of it to the staff, you know, to Nick to look at, or, you know, we just restore it.
Okay. And you're saying if you were to replace it with insulated glass, you think you could replicate the Muntin profile that's there?
Yes,
Okay, so it wouldn't have to be larger.
right.
Okay. I mean, it's otherwise not I did look at this up close. It's not an especially architectural treatment of the window. It's pretty simple. So I suppose apart from the insulated glass part, replicating it, I would think you could do it pretty exactly. But commissioners, any other thoughts about this? Anyone have concerns about replacing this?
I don't. I think it needs to be replaced.
Okay, how about the insulated glass part of it?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Insulated glass, yes.
I'm sorry, Mo, I didn't quite catch that.
There should be insulated glass. There's no problem redoing this. The grid of the windows would be survive, and it would be pleasant, and it would be energy conservative. My concern was what you mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation was that you don't have any openings in this window. If this to be a residential unit, how do people get fresh air?
There's a light well in the back, further into the building. It's not in the back, but it's in the sort of the
Okay.
middle. And
Okay.
we have sufficient ventilation through there.
Okay. I don't have a
Okay.
problem.
Okay, so you have no issue with it, Mo, assuming again they would replicate the Muntin profile and so forth.
Well, the Muntin profile here is really skinny, and so how you do that and achieve insulated glass, true divided light insulated glass is going to be a challenge.
Yeah, we have a company, Historic Door and Window, that I know you guys have seen their
Mm.
products before, and they actually
Okay.
make their own insulating glass units, and they do it with a very narrow spacer bar at the perimeter, and they're able to replicate the narrow profile Muntin, you know, with that spec. It's a custom insulating glass unit that they manufacture themselves. They're the only company I know if they can do it.
Nick, what do we remember of that presentation we had by a company we met out on Cambridge Street a few months ago? They were pushing a different kind of window insulating glass.
Yeah, where they did the true divided lights on the exterior, and it was a single pane of glass on the interior.
Yeah.
I think I sent those to Guy also for, I think, was it 56 Beacon?
Yeah, that was a clever product. That's a company in
Yeah.
Connecticut that does that, in Mystic.
Yeah, we still haven't, you know, because that building is brand new, we were okay with approving it for that particular product or for that particular position.
Okay.
But not for an actual historic building just yet. We're still waiting for them to be installed so we can take a look and see what they actually look like.
No, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we can get you a shop drawing on how that's done.
Okay, I mean, we could condition, I'm not sure we quite have a consensus on this, but we could condition an approval of this. Certainly would require a shop drawing, but that the Muntin profile be replicated with true divided lights in this case as a proviso. Okay, anyone else want to weigh in on this issue of do we try to restore or do we allow the replication of this window? Arian, anyone else? Okay, anything else, Nick? So just to recap, roof deck, which is ostensibly not visible, the lintel treatment, for which we're going to have a delegation of the door portion, final design to staff. Intercom,
Yeah.
for which
Yep.
we're going to approve in concept the type of intercom, but we'll delegate to staff the exact placement and installation details with drawing in advance. And then the window, which I think I'm going to just, unless someone wants to, I mean, it sounds like we've got support for replicating this with insulated glass, as long as the muntins are no larger than what's there now.
Also, if you're going to do that, it should be the spacer bar should be the same colors as the button bars.
Yes. Right.
And then also, if you do recommend, or if you do approve the roof deck and the HVAC equipment, don't forget that. I would put it in the approval that it should not be visible.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because otherwise this is yes. Okay. Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns, commissioners? Otherwise, I'll make a motion. Okay, I will move that the application be approved as submitted with the following provisos. That the roof deck is not visible and HVAC equipment not visible from the public way. That the roof deck railing, pardon me, that the design for the restoration of the lintels on the Revere Street side to match on a floor by floor basis the Revere Street side, the Revere Street side to match on a floor by floor basis the Myrtle Street side is approved in concept, with the final design above the door to reflect, again in concept, matching the extant condition on the lintels on the Myrtle Street side, but with the final details of the design to be approved by staff, with shop drawings submitted in advance of construction. That the approval of the replacement of the storefront window is approved with the proviso that the muntin profile be replicated exactly, and more specifically that the muntins be no larger than what's existing, and that the spacer bars for the true divided lights match the color of the muntins, and that no lowy glass is specified. Did I get the intercom?
No, not yet.
And the intercom design is approved in concept with the exact dimensions and location and method of installation to be approved by staff, with shop drawings supplied in advance of construction.
So moved.
Okay, do I hear a second? Oh, that is a second, sorry. Okay, we will vote. Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Feingold,
Aye.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Hi.
and Commissioner Kiefer votes aye. Okay, so it's approved. Thank you, Guy, for coming in and for the thorough presentation. You'll get a letter from Nick with the details. Obviously, you'll need to follow up with him on a couple of items, and anything else, obviously, just follow up with him as well. Thanks.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I think next is 150. Yes, Nick.
Sorry, Mark, that's so rude.
No.
The 32 Myrtle might be here.
Okay, I tell you what, I'm gonna ask for a 3-minute recess.
Okay.
And since I know we got the big Charles Street thing coming up, can you sort that while I do that, and I'll be right
Yeah.
back.
Perfect. Okay. Take a little break. All right, and I think that's him. Okay. Hey, are you here for 32 Myrtle? .362 co.
Yes, no, it's my email from my other business. It just popped up right like that.
That's okay.
Yeah, I missed it. I thought it was 5:30, and when I found out it's already started, I tried to jump on, couldn't put my name on it. So yeah, I'm 32 Myrtle Street. We can have a
Okay. Great. Yeah. All right. So we'll yeah. All right. We'll do that, and then my friends at the 155, 157 will go next.
All right,
Cool.
thank you for calling back again.
Sure. Yeah, no worries. All right.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your patience. Whenever you're ready, Nick.
Yep, we're all set. So we have a representative for 32 Myrtle Street. And
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So we
Okay.
have this here. All right.
So this
so
is a violation,
yeah.
just to remind everyone, this is what was on the early part of the agenda. This is a violation, which also includes, I believe, an application to ratify some of the elements of the violation.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we've got a representative here. Who is our representative?
Yeah, this is Lucky from 32 Myrtle Street, Beacon Capital Market. Hello, everyone.
Hello, thank you for coming in. So at issue here is two things, right? It's the equipment.
Three things.
Three things: equipment, the lighting above the door, and the associated conduit and wiring and so forth. The signage in the windows, and then Nick, what's the third?
The security camera.
Security camera. Yes, thank you. Which is shown in the upper right here. Okay, so I guess first principle here, just as a reminder, any changes to architectural features that can be seen from a public way within the boundaries of the historic district need to be approved in advance by this commission. So, and this is the facade of the building, which is certainly an architectural feature. So all this stuff counts. We have jurisdiction over signage, so that counts too. And so if it wasn't clear, I'm sure Nick made it clear, but that's why you've been cited for the violation. And I think our objective here is to come up with a solution that fixes this. So
That's correct. Yeah. So I didn't know, I thought, any structural changes like getting a new sign or replacing a window or the door would need approval prior to doing this. For that reason, I thought it would be fine, but I just found out when we received the notice that, I cannot do that either. I need an approval. So I'm just here, I'm open to advice and a suggestion, what can be done now so we can rectify it.
okay. No, I appreciate that. And so just to clarify, and Nick, I did look at it, but can you just please remind us?
Yeah.
And apologize in advance, but there is also an application for both the lights, the security camera, and the signage.
Correct. Yeah. This is to ratify those three violations that
Got
we
it.
have. Correct. Yes.
Okay, so let's make that the subject of the conversation. And is it further the case, Nick, that ostensibly you just said it, but just to be clear, they are asking for formal permission to do what is now there, which is what we're
Correct.
looking at: the lights, the conduit, the camera, and the signage in the windows. Okay,
Yes.
commissioners, any clarifying questions about what's at issue here with respect to the violation and the related application?
What I'm looking at, did they place this there? The lighting,
These,
like that wasn't there before, correct? Or was it something that was added on? The lights that are there.
The camera is new. There were lights, and these are new lights. Is that correct?
yeah, I think there was an old fixture there. You see this rod. This was there before, but this was all rotten with the wires inside. So we replaced this whole thing with the new light bulbs. And the camera is new. Camera was never there before.
Right. Oh yeah, there's a nice old picture.
Yeah.
So let me see the old picture. So All right,
That's
so
what-
the lights were not looking like that before. Okay.
For
So-
for clarity, the lighting for the signage has been there for quite some time. I always just go back to 2007 to say that it's been there for a very long time. So that's not the issue. The issue is that the fixtures were changed and then the conduit was
Well,
changed.
that's what I mean. The fixtures.
Oh, see, yes.
Like, yeah, because I'm like, I didn't
Yep.
look particularly Beacon Hill, but I just saw.
Correct. Yep. And then the window decals were changed.
Yes, yeah. So these the ones that we already have. This shows C-grams on it. They were pretty old. So I don't know for how long ago this picture was, but they at this point, they were. But every time we clean the window, so they would just fall off. So and I again, I was in the impression, they had it there, so I can put the newer one over there, which we did. And but now we're in a situation, what can be done? It's not just like proving what I already have out there. It's something that what can be done now. Do we need to change it? Do we need to move things around?
Um, So I mean, would you be able to put the light fixtures back in the appropriate place so it can look? No, that can't be done.
No, those were rotten. They were all the wires were rotten. You touch it, the metal would fall apart. It was all rusty.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I don't think she's talking about bringing back the old ones, but let's just, so we can take public comment on this. Let's just, for the moment, if I could, I don't mean to cut you off there, Ian, but
No, it's sorry. I just tried to paint it there black. So
any other questions about what is the issue here and what's proposed?
No,
We'll certainly discuss these things in depth in a moment.
let's move it on.
Okay, let's go ahead and take public comment. If you want to be heard on the record, please raise your hand in your Zoom panel using the button at the bottom, and Nick will unmute you.
Okay, Rochelle, go ahead.
Beacon Hill Civic Association, we oppose ratification of the security cameras as guideline A9 requires equipment such as security cameras be installed such that they are not visible from a public way, but suggests black cameras could be mounted either inside the window or into the window or door trim and more closely comply with the guideline. While guideline I-12 states that exterior illumination of signs is discouraged, even without exposed conduit, we do not oppose the replacement lighting, but suggest the replacements and visible conduit could have been done in a more appropriate size and style to minimize visual impact. We oppose ratification of the vinyl window decals as guideline I-10 does not permit advertising of specific merchandise, and guideline I-13 requires signage to not be excessive. End of comment.
Thank you, Rochelle. Mark, I'm not seeing any other comments from the public, so we can close it for this application.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Rochelle. So let's see. Yeah, so it's three things: the lights, the camera, and the signage. And just by way of background, since I appreciate you might be a bit new to this, we have two standards that we work with. Primary one is historical and architectural appropriateness, and the other sort of quality of workmanship. The quality of workmanship has to do mostly with materials, but putting those two things together, what we're trying to accomplish when we adjudicate alterations to the exterior of buildings is, number one, to not take away historic fabrics, things that are contributing to the architectural history or even just the history in general of the district. And in particular, we're sensitive to removing what we might call character defining features, things that tell you something about when the building was built or how it was built or what style it was and that kind of thing. And then related to that, but separate to that, when we talk about adding new things, we want to make sure that the things we add are stylistically, architecturally, historically kind of consistent with what's already there. Now, we recognize that over the many years that the Beacon Hill has had buildings and the still long number of years in which we've had a historic district, there have been all kinds of modern technologies that we've needed to adapt to maintain these buildings for modern living and use. So we have electronic doorbells. We do have lights, pendant lights, electric lights, to light the entryways of residences and so forth. And so it's not that we can't abide any technology that's of 20th century or modern vintage and so forth. It's just a matter of, can we integrate those technologies in a way that minimizes their impact on the historic resources? And so things like this, when we sort of just bolt an industrial fixture with a conduit right on top of that architectural feature, that lintel, that piece of stone above the door, that's very prominent, it's visible, and it detracts from the architecture of the building. And even though this is maybe a modest building compared to some of the other ones, it's nevertheless important in the history of the neighborhood. And the fact that your store is there, that tells us something about this street and this part of the neighborhood, that as we could tell from the clues around it, there were many such storefronts. There's, of course, as you know, several storefronts across the street, down the street, and even more so as you get closer to Cambridge Street. And so your building contributes to what we understand about the history of this neighborhood just by having a storefront and a business in it that you run. And so we want to preserve as much as we can that historic character of these commercial spaces just as much as the residential ones. So I think our question here is, how do we do that in a tasteful manner that still accomplishes what you need to run your business? So I guess the first question is, can we mount the camera somewhere where it's not so prominent? Can we redo the lights in a way that are less obtrusive and don't draw so much attention to themselves? Let's take the security camera first. One of the things we can do to make this better is to make it black rather than white.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, there was a suggestion made that what if you could put it inside the window? Is that possible?
You mean the window above the door, right here where the wire comes out?
Well,
Is right here though?
Actually,
Or
I'm
is
not
it
sure.
on the other side of the window? It can be moved for sure, the guy who put this up, he can definitely kind of relocate it, the reason they did over there, just for better coverage for both sides.
Yeah, well, so imagine, for example, that it was inside the main storefront window. And I mean, you could even have two of them and facing in either direction to get more coverage if they're mounted on the wall there and just kind of look through the window, for example.
I mean, you mean right here, in here, or you talking about the window here?
The big window.
Oh, the
Yeah.
big windows here. No, we did not explore that option, we could try to put it over there, but if you put it from inside, they're so close to the ledge, they may not cover, up to the extent. You just being a small business and a liquor store, ABCC, usually ask us all those your security cameras, how many you have inside and outside. For that purpose, we just put them up. It could be a better location. I don't know, but yeah, we can definitely play around with this. Maybe we can bring this closer to door here and paint it black. It's white. It's pretty obvious, and it's much noticeable. Right
Yeah.
here, I'm thinking if we could just bring it back here.
Or what about tucking it up under where the red X is, above the door?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, we could do that because the wire comes out of there. We can just take that extra wire, push back inside, and have him, the camera guy would install the camera here. And after that, we will still paint it black also once we moved it back there, so it's kind of blends in with the trim color.
Okay, could it be actually, just to be clear, mounting it on the underside of that lintel, that piece of gray stone there?
I don't know if they can. I think if they could make a hole there, or maybe we could do right on the wood also. The door wood right here, much be easier doing that rather than making a hole into that the gray brick right above. But it can definitely be tucked in. I mean, the wire he extended, I think, was just for a better view and coverage. But we can definitely have them move back right where the cross is right now.
Yeah, right in there. That I think.
Yeah,
that's
right
better.
right at the joint. Yeah, we could do over there.
Okay, so that would be one possibility. So we want to make it black. We want to try to
Yep.
get it off the front of the building if we can.
Sure.
So maybe tuck it up in there if it'll fit there. You could also, again, explore putting it totally on the inside of the big main window, and you could even have two if you wanted, because there if it's really inside the thing, it's out of our jurisdiction. Okay, now how about the lights? I would love to, I know we've got an older photo that shows that there's been we're looking at it right now, I'm sorry. This is the old version, that conduit was there, but let's face it, it's kind of ugly. It's rather ugly. Is there a way we could mount the wiring through the mortar of the brick and get rid of the conduit altogether?
I don't know. I would have to, because I think what they did, they saw these rods here, so they got the wire out and then do it. So were you trying to say, so like a no rod right here, like this conduit, and
Yeah, so
also the
right,
lighting? So I don't know. Maybe I don't know much about this side, but we can definitely ask the electrician to take that pipe off, and but we have to find a way to get the wires out here.
in other words,
Because
if you wired the two lights separately.
No,
so you mean this conduit? You're saying this conduit should disappear
That,
right in
yes.
the middle? Okay. Yeah, I think so. I don't. Maybe if he has a wire from here, he may have to run another wire for second wire for the other one, and this could disappear, and only these pieces would be on the wall.
Yeah,
I
that'd
mean,
be a lot better.
yeah, I mean, definitely, I can definitely reach out to an electrician who did that. I'm sure, there is a way to do it, and we
And-
should know.
And could we again, with the intention of trying to make these things go away as much as possible, could we paint the base of the sort of box that right there?
Yeah,
So it's
definitely. You
just,
can paint it black. Yeah, definitely. I just looked at the old pictures; they were all black.
yeah, okay. I think we're making progress here.
So, quick question before we move to the
Yes,
third part.
please.
Just for example, like if it's tough for them to run another wire here, because if we look at the old picture, the conduit was still there, but that was black in a color. Do you think this could be whole painted black? And
I think having it black would be better, would be preferred. You can see also it was above the lintel there, rather than running across the middle of it. I think that's less obtrusive the way it was there. But again, I think we'd really want to try to get rid of the conduit if at all possible.
you have to get rid of the conduit.
Yeah.
sure, yeah, we'll reach out to electrician, and we'll go over the possibilities.
Now, with respect, commissioners, with respect to the lights, obviously we have guidelines that discourage the lighting of signs, exterior lighting of signs. But we have allowed it in the past, even recently, particularly in cases where we've got a new business coming into an existing space where the sign had lights. And I would draw a distinction, as I have in the past, between businesses that are only open during the day and those that do a significant amount of business after sunset. This is in that latter category. And so I think the lighting of signs on a limited basis is appropriate for businesses like that, and indeed arguably necessary. So I'm okay with having lights because they've been there forever, as Nick said. And I just want to make it cleaner and remove the conduit and so forth, if at all possible.
Sure. Yeah, we'll definitely work on that.
Commissioners, is that okay? Is that okay?
Yeah, remove that conduit would definitely be a big plus. And I mean, lighting the sign again, the sign already had lights originally. I have no problem with that. Don't know how the neighbors would feel about that, but I don't have a problem with that. But I would say the thing that struck me the most was the current lighting situation. So definitely, I'm in agreement with you, dear chair, to get rid of that conduit to make it Beacon Hill.
As much as possible, right?
Yes, please. Please.
Right. Okay. So then let's turn our attention to the signage. Now, we do regulate signage. This is a really important part of what we do on the commercial parts of Beacon Hill, which is primarily Charles Street and Cambridge Street. But of course, there are businesses like this one on Myrtle Street. There are other businesses right in this, or just the next block. I think we also want to be particularly sensitive about the signage on buildings in the residential portion of the district. And I'll just tell you in broad strokes what the guidelines say and what they mean, or at least as I can interpret them. Number one is that the signage needs to fit in with the character of the building in general, and or the building in particular, and the sort of historic and architectural character of the neighborhood in general. And that means things like, you know, no neon signs or things like that. It means we like historic signs. Actually, you've got one that's in pretty tough shape, but it's kind of neat because it's very old, and we like that kind of thing. That is to say, the projecting sign. And in general, the third sort of principle is that we limit the number, the size, the proportions of the signs so that we can minimize the architecture, the sort of clutter that signage creates. Because again, the more that there is, the more it kind of diminishes the architecture, which is kind of what we're about, the historic architecture. And so I think here, what's most problematic is these signs on the bottom here.
These ones right here, right? The orange ones.
Yeah, yeah.
With the product and a brand on it.
Yeah, so we do have a guideline about advertising in general. So generally what we look for is the content of the sign to be limited ostensibly to identifying the business. Occasionally, you'd be correct in observing that there are additional details that are sometimes captured in signage. You know, the sign on you know, it might include something, you know, very succinct, like opening hours or some aspect of the business, but generally not advertising. The one exception is businesses that have a display box, as we call it, like the realtors, for example. It's the most common thing, which is like a wood box near the door that might have a door on it with a window in it. So you can look inside this box and see real estate listings and things like that. And those things are, I suppose, technically kind of advertising, but we have a specific guideline about those display boxes and how many you can have. And, you know, again, they still have to fit in with the architecture of the building. So it's just the kind of signage you've got there in the window is just problematic from our guidelines. Likewise, the portion at the top that just says Beacon Capital Market, generally each business, regardless of how many businesses are in the building, you just got the one, but is entitled to one flat sign. Typically, think about Charles Street. Typically, it's not in the window like that. It's above the window or above the door, and typically on a piece of wood. And so that's what we kind of need to see here for the main building, main sign identifying the business. Typically, what you have, what's allowed is one of these flat signs per business, and then one projecting sign for the building. So you are entitled to a flat sign and a projecting sign. You've got a projecting sign already, the one hanging above the door that the lights are shining on. But the flat sign really should be something that is, again, more consistent with our guidelines with respect to as I mentioned before, the quality of workmanship, the materials and things like that. So I think we want to see that one replaced as well.
So, I mean, I'm just trying to circle back. So the one on the top that says Beacon Capital Market, is that needs to go away too, or
I mean,
right on the top?
You can have a sign like that. And certainly our guidelines and the city sign code allow you to have a sign that that indicates the name of the business, a flat sign like that. But I don't know if we have an image of this that we could zoom out on a little bit, maybe go back to the Google Maps for a second. But you know, typically the way you would do this, Nick, if you've got the con, can we go back to?
Yeah, with the old picture, you know, I mean, same, it just is an assumption that, you know, the old business had it. I mean, there's an advertisement for a Seagram.
Yeah.
It's also a product advertisement right up there.
Yeah, now, right. And, you know, I appreciate where you're coming from there. The reality is, not everything you see around in the historic district was approved by this commission. And we I mean, this is proof, of course, in the present case that we do eventually cite things that are violations when they're violations. But Nick is only one person, and you know, we don't necessarily cite them immediately. We don't always see them. There are other things that have been there for a long time, and they may nevertheless not have been approved by this commission. So the fact that there might be some other examples of stuff that we normally don't allow doesn't mean it was approved. So can you tell me what
I have
exactly?
a question, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
yeah, go ahead.
In this window presentation, is that true that it's divided in the middle? There's 6 panes of glass where he's
Three.
proposing 3 panes? Or is that,
It's 3 panes of glass.
why do they look like? Oh, okay.
It's just on the inside.
Okay, thank you.
Now, one alternative would be to do something like you see here, where you could put a sign, again, tastefully done with appropriate materials and so forth, on the inside. Do you still have that one?
I do, yeah, we kept it, we're not done with the moving stuff around, we're saving all those. They're all gonna come out eventually. I do have this sign, we saved it, we can definitely bring that to the window.
Because if you just brought back the lower portion as it is there, instead of what you've got now, I think that would be a big improvement.
A very big improvement, because that looks, look at that signage. It says. It says.
No, it looks great, I mean, like
Yeah.
we kept all these pictures and everything, we were cleaning things around, all that stuff. But again, we got that done, we thought that would be the right thing to do, while we're doing this one and don't have enough of the old stuff that we could use later on. But we definitely, I would definitely work on that. We could bring these signs out to make it look. So I'll take that, the big branding on the bottom that we have, the Cheetos, could take it out. And do you think if I use this one part of I don't have the one that's the big black part right behind it, because they're 2 different pieces. So we do have this one right here that just says the Beacon Capital Market.
Yes.
I would love to bring that to the window. Again, we loved it. We
And what
saved
happened
it.
to another 2 sides? Because
Yeah, the other 2 types were pictures. I think we gave it to some of our local customers who was in love with the store, and they knew Stuart for a while, and I think we gave away some of the older pictures they wanted to have, but it wasn't the right time for Stuart, because he was still in commission to give them away, and we know we wouldn't be able to use all of them, so we had some of the neighbors who were really into those, so we gave a couple of those away. So quick question over here would be, if I do this right here and I take that off these side windows where it says Tito, the bright orange, what else can I do there? In terms of putting something.
Okay, we're still talking about the bottom portion?
Yeah.
Bottom portion, yes, bottom portion.
Yeah, I mean, so you can see what they've done here. I think in the grander scheme of things is pretty tasteful in that they've just got these framed pictures and so forth. Strictly speaking, our jurisdiction only extends to the exterior of the building.
Yep.
Now, so for example, in the same way that, okay, you can see what products you have for sale through the window. We don't regulate that and so forth. But I think what this is an example of, you have sort of like a tasteful window display. So we don't regulate, for example, displays inside of windows. People want to put merchandise and things like that. I'll just, as an example, as a simple example, the hardware store on Charles Street, to Charles Street Supply, they will do a combination of they'll do window displays that are a combination of products that they sell and just decorations, and they may change them out for the seasons, for Christmas or something like that. And so, that might be an opportunity if you wanted to
No, definitely. I love that idea. I think that's original. The plan for us was that, go seasonally change stuff from inside. I do have other liquor store and a couple other businesses on in Back Bay. So that's what we do there. In the windows, we have seasonal displays and all this stuff. For over here, we weren't ready for that. And our cash register is right there to just block that view at night, when someone's counting a cash behind the register. So we said, all right, so let's get the window clinks on it. We'll solve the issue right away. But I think bringing that back again, the idea of doing that, I think that's a great idea. I would definitely be, looking forward.
Okay, and again, you can, if you wanted to, I see you've got a little space there, just put a panel to block the view that's maybe 1 foot inside the window. And
We
then
tried
maybe
with the pictures, but there's some peekholes that you could do. But I think, we have, I probably would the translucent sheet from the inside, that kind of make it blurry so it's not clearly visible. And bring this sign out, and I'll take those on the side windows. We'll take those the clinks down.
Okay, appreciate that. And so if you bring back this Beacon Capital Market sign in the middle, you won't need the ones at the top, right?
Probably not, but I would kind of to have, up there, it's little, this looks nice, great, people, but that's a little more, calling out the name of the business itself, if I have a permission to keep that on, but I'll get rid of all those, the bright orange.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid you can't really have both because again, it's one flat sign per business. So if you're gonna have the one in the middle at the bottom, you can't have the one at the top.
Okay. So only one sign per business on the window?
Yeah,
So if,
What about the signs he had on the doors, on the door?
should we go back to that?
Yeah. Mark, have we explored the option of setting it back from the window, though? Making it out of our jurisdiction?
Yeah, I'm sorry that, so what I'm getting at when I mention all these, the window displays and so forth. So this, I don't know what this is exactly, this black panel. It looks like it's just like a louvered panel, like shutters or something.
this was, yeah.
Yeah, so you have an objective here. You want to obscure the view to the cash register, right? So you want something in that lower third of the window that blocks that view. Is that right?
No, yeah, I mean, this part is solved, like we discussed about that. I'll get rid of those orange clinks that are on the window, I'll put the middle sign in here. We'll find something from the inside to cover the view. That's done, I agree with the suggestion. The only permission I'm asking is if I could leave the top sign on that it says Beacon Capital.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be problematic with the one, if you restore this one in the middle, because we really just want to have the one sign. There are exceptions where you have the flat sign, let's say above the business, and then some lettering on the door.
Mhm.
We've certainly allowed that. Do you have lettering on the door right now?
I do, yes.
Okay. I mean, you've got a projecting sign as well. So I think it's pretty clear what business this is. I think with the one in the window,
That's right.
the
That's
one
right.
above the door, you really don't need the third one.
All right, we'll work on that. So I'll try to get rid of the top signs also.
Okay, very good. Nick, do we need to further clarify per your question a moment ago?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, here's what I would suggest to my colleagues. Again, we've got a violation and we've got an application. And the application is to ratify what's there. And clearly we're not going to do that. But it sounds like I think we've come to an agreement as to what we can do. So what I think, and Nick, just correct me if you think, just tell me if this makes sense, that I'm going to make a motion that the violation be dismissed and the application be approved
Can I
conditional.
ask one more question?
Yes,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
So where it says the Beacon Capital Market, the clinks on the top, if I bring the middle one in here, this should go. So do you think I could put these ones, beer and wine, liquor and convenience on the top instead of a business name? That's like, wait, these here, over here.
That's something that we try to minimize. I think, I'm not sure I don't think we would approve the beer liquor convenience the way you've got them there. We would probably
Something-
entertain some further lettering in the window if it was tasteful, if it was modest in
Okay.
scale, but I think you'd have to come back with a specific design. So the
Okay.
short answer is no to what's there now, just moving
Okay.
that up.
Mhm.
Maybe to doing some treatment like that with lettering.
Yep.
Depending on how much of it, what it says, where it is, how big it is, that kind of thing.
Okay, sounds good.
But we'd want you to apply for that separately.
Sure.
Okay. So I think we would make dismissal of the violation contingent on the satisfactory removal of the stuff we've specified and the revision of the design as we proposed. Nick, is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, so I will move that the violation be dismissed, conditional on the and the application be approved with provisos, specifically number one, that the camera be painted black and relocated such that is either entirely inside the windows or tucked underneath the door lintel such that it does not protrude beyond the face of the building. Number two, that the bases of the lights for the sign be painted black. Number three, that the conduit be removed and that the light fixtures be wired individually through the mortar joints of the brick behind the bases of each light. That the lower signage in the windows, the lower third of the windows for the Tito products be removed. That the upper portion of the signage that says Beacon Capital Market be removed. And that the Beacon Capital Market sign that was previously inside the window and related accompanying panels be restored. And that the final design of all the above be approved in advance, subject to approval by staff, and the details submitted to staff before any work be done.
I second that.
Yeah, right.
Was that an assent, Mo?
Yes.
Okay, we
So-
will, that's a motion and it's been moved and seconded. We will vote. Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Feingold,
Aye.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Aye.
Commissioner Kiefer votes aye. Okay, so that is approved. I know that was a lot of points. So you'll get a letter from Nick describing exactly what I just said, what's been approved, what's required to correct the violation. And then you'll need to follow up with him with the details. And he'll work that out with you and confirm once the work is done that the violation is dismissed.
All right, cool. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
of
thanks
course.
for your attention. Okay, finally, well, almost finally, 155, 159, Charles, thanks for your patience, folks. I see, it looks like Eric is there, and do we also have, it just says Rhodey Architects, we've got a couple of folks, hands up,
Yeah,
anyone
yeah.
else from the
Yeah.
team
I'm
want
let's
to get in on
see.
this?
Gonna make them co-hosts. Let's see. I don't know. William, do you want to be unmuted?
Oh, yes, William Young is on here as well,
Let's
I
unmute.
saw him
Let's
earlier.
let's make William the co-host also. Let's see. All right. Anybody else? Oh, there we go. Eric, I got you. All right. Does anyone want to take control of the presentation, or do you want me to just advance the slides for you?
I can do it, Nick. And this
Great,
is
Ruthie.
Ruthie. It's labeled Rhodey Architects. I also couldn't change it to add my name. So
That's a safety precaution. I apologize.
Yeah.
We've had some
We'll
issues in the
We'll
past.
explain later if you really need to know, but
I
thank
think I've
you.
seen it happen. So
Yeah, yeah, right. Not your first rodeo, as they say. Thank you all for coming in. Thanks again for coming back. And we've seen the revised plans. Thanks for your thoughtful consideration of our earlier comments. I know this is a big project and it's been a long time in the making. So appreciate you trying to move it down and move it to completion. I'll let you go ahead and why don't you just briefly recap where we were, what and what you've done since last time. Take it away. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairman Kiefer, commissioners, appreciate the time. We will quickly move through this updated presentation just to highlight the pieces from our last hearing back in February. So I think some of the highlights are written here, and I won't really read them through, but I think we did receive some positive feedback on the approach, some really thoughtful comments about how much the building needs to stand on its own, and sort of the boldness of it was, I think, well appreciated. And I think we also heard some desire for additional information on the storefront at the streetscape, and also thinking a little bit more about some of the detailing. So we have all that here tonight that we will quickly walk through. And then I think we'll also wrap up sort of at the end with some of our thoughts about the mock-up that we think is critical on the project that we will be building eventually, just to make sure that we are getting all the details that we're envisioning correctly as we move forward. So with that, I will advance the next slide, please. So just a quick reminder, I don't think anybody probably needs the real reminder, but just where we are located here on the corner of Charles and Cambridge Street at the Cambridge Circle, looking at the next life of the CVS building site, as you can see on the bottom left, and a little bit of some of the context that we had talked about previously about that moment in terms of an urban condition, completing the edges and the corners of the two streets as similar on the other side of Charles at the Public Garden and Boston Common end. Next slide. Just as a quick overview, again, same basic principles as we presented back in February, just sort of acknowledging the sequence and sort of the steps that had brought us to the massing and also the architectural approach that we're proposing here tonight. So one was the original way back when we had a single large cantilever and a 6-story building. The middle number 2 is the reduced height of the building, and then with some stepping of those bays, so mitigating some of the dimensional overhang that we had from comments through the community process. And then 3 sort of took the next step in terms of moving from a massing and zoning diagram to an architectural response, where we talked about some references to bay window buildings and curved architecture that's prevalent around in the district, and then thinking about how that might start to influence our building. Also thinking about some of the additional curve and moves that are adjacent to us with some of the existing buildings at Top Shelf and the Whitney. And then 4 really took those historical aspects of the district and brought that into our approach, which is a little bit more of a contemporary approach, to take those bays and invert them to be reflective of the curvature of Cambridge Circle, and then also sort of the dynamic edge that is associated with that moment, with the amount of traffic and movement that's happening there, to create a contemporary response to that move through a series of inverted curvature moments. And then 5 and 6 really are looking at the way that we've applied the proportion and windowing of the 2 different facades, the Charles Street facade taking a little bit more of its cues from that side edge of the street, where the Cambridge side is looking at a little bit more of the contemporary moves with larger bayed windowing approach. Next slide. Just a little bit more of a reminder on some of the things that we brought out last time, which was just sort of the study of proportion and banding and horizontal alignment along with the vertical alignment. Here's our study of the Charles Street facade. Next slide. On the Cambridge Street facade, looking at our proposed windowing proportion, which is a little bit different in context to some of the adjacent buildings, and how those are looking at larger apertures and a little bit more of a different patterning as it comes to the facade. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Ruthie. She's going to take us through a little bit more of the specific responses and development in terms of some of the architectural moments as we are still working through this process and this project. Thanks.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm just going to walk through kind of the discrete updates, and then I'll show you a round of the renders that we shared last time that have all of those coming together within them. So the first one is the cornice, both up at the roof level and at level 2, which we had shown as a soldier course with a recessed brick. And the discussions in the last meeting had been about how it needed to feel like it had a little more emphasis to it. So we explored a number of options looking at this. We wanted to find something that would, create more of a hierarchy in terms of drawing attention to this element, but not take away from all of the overall moves that are happening on the massing. So something that would feel sculpturally a part of it. So what we're proposing is on the right, which is taking this similar language, but recessing every other brick course of the soldier course, following some other projects in the district that have this detail. But we feel that this adds this additional shadow edge at both the roof level and at level 2 that gives it some further definition relating to elements up and down the street, but still results in the overall sculptural massing reading simply. And I'm going to keep going through these and happy to discuss them after the presentation. But the next piece that we got a lot of feedback on that we wanted to revisit was what was happening at level 1 and at the soffit. And I think we heard support in the last meeting for the materiality and the color that we were looking at, but a request for some refinement to both the moves that were happening to kind of create the connection between the curve that's at level 1 and the overhangs at level 2. And also some refinement in the storefront to add some richness without adding too much ornamentation to it, something simple, but that brought that kind of next level of detail. And so what we're proposing, you can see here on the right, is looking at, and this would be, we're proposing a green terracotta material that would be the soffit and these piers. And we're looking at a profile that's a little bit more refined that references some of the stepping that we think is important in connecting the circular geometry on level 1 to what's happening up on level 2, but in a much more controlled kind of repetitive edge that feels more like a top kind of cornice portion to the storefront. And we are looking to integrate a signage band into that overall design. And so you can see there's a flat portion above that ties into it in the same materiality, and that same material and module would carry down these piers. And then the other piece is the storefront here, which we have added a little more detail with a profile to all the mullions as they come around and a little more richness, which you can't see here, but I'll show you on the next couple slides, in some of the doors and entries. I will say one of the other things in this view, we do have 3 forms of signage that we're showing here. We had discussed in the last meeting bringing some more signage around the edge of Cambridge Street. And so what we wanted to show here in one view is 3 types of ways that we can integrate the signage into the building design, understanding that once we know what the retail is, how many retailers there are, where the entry is, that application will need to come back more specifically on exactly which signage areas are being used. But we wanted to plan for the ability to have a blade sign, to have a pier sign, and then have the signage band above the storefront. So here are a couple other views that you can see of the storefront areas and how that proposed terracotta soffit starts to wrap around at level 1, bringing in kind of the granite base across the bottom, and then that simple, a little bit more richness in, you can see a little section here, the details of the storefront system. And then a view here that's just standing back, seeing kind of the full extent of the storefront across Cambridge Street with the facade above. All right, and then looking down to the ground level, this was something that we had brought at the last meeting and had generally discussed, but wanted to bring this up again at this meeting and talk a little more specifically. We're not planning to do too much to the overall aesthetics of what's happening on the ground floor. But did want to bring to the attention that one of the elements we are zeroing in on is there's a lot of mismatched tree grates that are happening across this area on the sidewalks. We would be planning to updating all of them to match what is actually this one here, which also matches the tree grates at the Whitney, and otherwise keeping the public realm materiality wise similar to what it is there today. And then the treatment on Silver Place with the granite paving with the inset brick. And we have a little update on the lighting that we'll share. So there were some questions on the floor plans and what was happening during the last meeting. So we just wanted to bring these. I think one of the pieces we wanted to highlight that we talked about a little bit is the larger window apertures that shift back and forth across the building are shifting with the floor plans, and the larger windows do line up with the living rooms and the smaller windows are lining up with the bedrooms. So just to give everyone a little bit of idea of how the interior and the exterior are working together. And then this is a floor plan of the roof level, which would give a little bit more context, right, with Charles Street right here and Cambridge Street over here, where the resident roof deck is being proposed and where that mechanical penthouse is being located so that all equipment will not be visible from the street. And then to get a little more into materiality. So we've been talking a lot about what the brick should be for this project and how we want to be thinking about it. And I think as you walk up and down the street here and look at the brick, there's a lot of different tones that present themselves right around this area. And so, you know, the newest one, of course, being the Whitney that's kind of come in. And so what we are looking at is wanting to be a little red, brown, and a little deeper, richer than some of the other brick along the street. And so this is what we're proposing here. You can see it is taken in front of the existing CDF brick on the site. But we are looking at proposing a blend that would be made out of two very narrow ranges of red-brown brick. So a mahogany and a sorrel are the two colors that we're looking at here. And just to give a little context, the sorrel on the left, which we're proposing as kind of 10% of the blend, is very similar in tone to the Whitney brick. It's a little bit more brown, where the Whitney has a little more purple in it. So we are generally proposing to be a little bit lighter and a little redder than what the Whitney is, but similar in that kind of rich, deeper tone. And we're looking at having a smooth brick across the facade, and then looking at using a wire cut. This is in the mahogany at the insets where we have the soldier coursing at the windows to give a little bit more of a texture, and also the insets that you'll see on Silver Place where we set back some of the brick where we don't have windows to create some effect there. And so with that, I'll now kind of walk you through the update to these renderings. I will caveat that we have been trying very hard to get the brick tones to match what we just showed you, but our rendering does show up differently on different screens. And so Eric had mentioned the mock-up. We are planning to do a mock-up as part of this project, which we think is very important to make sure all the details come together, and also all the materials that we would propose to have the commission review once we get to that stage, as we figure out the brick. So that would be kind of the final approval, but we are trying to be right a little bit more brown and a little bit more red than what the Whitney is here. So that's the view from coming from the Esplanade area. Here's that view from the corner of Charles and Cambridge Street. And then superimposing here some of the details we showed you last time with the updates on the soldier coursing at the cornices. And on the right, we have how our details are starting to lay out. These are in progress, but wanted to give you the thoughts of how these different elements are starting to come together within the building. I will also note this is being designed as a passive house building that will be certified. So we do have some work to do as we're getting the insulation and all the other pieces that need to tie in behind the facade. And so this is, you can see a section of one of the steps happening, and then a section at that parapet. We are showing the parapet here is the majority of the guardrail for that roof deck area, and we will have a minimal black metal railing that gets up to the guardrail height, set back about a foot behind it. It is around 8 inches higher, but due to the angle that it's set back from the facade, it will not be visible from the areas of the street around the project. And here's a view from up Cambridge Street, looking back towards the Whitney with the project here. View up Charles Street, where you can see that window language that Eric was talking about, lining up with the different bays along Charles Street in those proportions. And then as we get closer, you can start to see down Silver Place here, and I'll go to the elevation of that on the next page. But one of the refinements we looked at Silver Place was taking the copper panels that we had here that were much more simple in the previous iteration. We're actually looking to add a little more detail and richness to tie them into the rest of the design. So having the brick elements that run between the windows carry in the paneling across this bay, and also looking at a standing seam copper that would run in between it in parallel with the windows. And so some other refinements, just working on the detailing of how the windows at the retail level are coming together, in this entry area back here, which is the main residential entry. And then a little bit on lighting. So we have been working with Lamb Partners as our lighting consultant as we're trying to figure out what the right lighting is for this project. So to start with Silver Place, and then I'll walk us around to Cambridge Street. But on Silver Place, we had shown a catenary fixture in the previous presentation, which we got some feedback on that fixture just didn't feel appropriate for Beacon Hill. And as we thought about the alternatives, we felt that the catenary fixtures really are a nice feature for Silver Place because of the way that they both create a residential scale, create light across the full extent of the area, and create an opportunity for some warmth. And so what we are looking to do is put a fixture, and you can see an example of what we're thinking up here, something that is in between a more contemporary simple fixture and something that has a little bit of a historic lean towards a lantern. So we're kind of trying to meet that in the middle, which is what you're seeing proposed. And then as we get around to Cambridge Street, we actually have two options that we wanted to bring to discuss with you all tonight. And so the first one, which is what we're proposing as the more kind of minimal option, is really not looking to light the building too much. This doesn't have the lighting set back in the retail like it would have up and down the street. And we know there are lanterns up and down the street as well. But really looking from a safety and usability perspective to create some effective lighting underneath this soffit by integrating some downlights within a channel that we would build into the kind of overall edge of the soffit. So these would be not visible from view until you're directly underneath them, but they would light the sidewalk area below the building and light people's faces as they came in and out of the storefronts. We are also proposing, because these are tucked up under the soffit, some simple signage lighting that would be integrated into the terracotta components that we have here where the signage band would be located. And so we felt, given the lighting up and down Charles Street, that this felt like it would be appropriate with the minimal level of lighting that happens around Beacon Hill. We did, because of the location here on Cambridge Street, want to bring an option that has a little bit more dramatic building lighting on the ground floor. So this would look at adjustable floodlights that would hit each of these terracotta piers. And so it's something that does bring a little bit more character to this edge of the building, but wanted to bring both options for discussion. And then the last piece I have here is the mock-up, which is something that, given the quality that we want this project to be, we're planning to do to work through with the client and the contractor. And so the mock-up won't be exactly like this. We're still working through it, but this captures generally all the details that we would want to see, which is all material on the project. I will note the copper panels are not shown here, but we would want that to be part of the mock-up. The typical cornice detail, a typical window surround detail, the typical edge condition on Cambridge Street, and then at level 1 and up to level 2, that typical soffit condition with the terracotta, how that interacts with the storefront, and then also how it transitions up into the brick soldier coursing that we're proposing. And so that is quick update. I do have just some photos here of the model that we've built in the office that's sitting next to me here in the conference room, but just nice to see how the light hits it not inside a rendered computer program. So we wanted to share with you. So yeah, that's what we brought to discuss today, and excited for the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruthie. Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Commissioners, I'm sure we're going to have some public comments on this, and I want to get to that as expeditiously as possible. So, Commissioners, any clarifying questions as to what the latest updates are?
Not for me. It's a very clear presentation.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thanks again, Ruthie and the team. Let's go to public comment then. So we have the benefit of that in our further discussion. If you want to be heard on the record, please raise your hand in your Zoom using the button that should be at the bottom of your Zoom panel, and Nick will unmute you.
Okay, first up we have is Rochelle. Rochelle, go ahead.
Hi, Beacon Hill Civic Association. Guideline A5 states contemporary design for new buildings may be considered if such design is of excellent quality and is compatible with the size, scale, color, materials, and character of neighboring buildings and environment. We constructively offer further ideas and pictures related to this goal. The revised modern cornice could be scaled down to be more subtle and attuned to the district and its neighbor Gateway building across Charles Street. Cambridge Street facade fenestration could be more traditional, with the large windows taking reference from nearby industrial buildings or atelier windows. The floor-to-floor height and window dimensions could be more closely aligned and proportioned to 151 Charles Street. As secondary facades, the east and south alley-facing sides could differ in brick variation as a litter and rustic common brick with irregularities to stress the traditional hierarchy of the primary facades as seen commonly throughout the district, even on the current CVS building. The brick color could be more in line with other district examples rather than the current CVS building. The bay window on Silver Place could be reconsidered in horizontally clad metal panel in appropriately painted or exposed tin colors, standing seam coppers more traditionally used on roof structures. End of comment.
Okay, thank you, Rochelle. Let's see. Next up we have is Tim Cook. Tim, go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much, and thank you for the committee for all the time you've invested in this. I'm a resident of Beacon Hill, also a member of the Civic Association, but I'm speaking in a personal regard. I know you've had a lot of meetings, however, I just want to take this opportunity. The design seems to be not consistent with a historic neighborhood. It is contemporary, it is modern, it's sort of more likely fits in Kendall Square than does in Beacon Hill. Secondly, it's taller than all the abutting buildings. 92 West Cedar Street, 161 Charles Street, and 166 Charles Street. It's considerably taller than all of them, and it's asking for an exemption. And it's, again, why give another developer who knew the footprint, exactly what they were buying, why give them an exemption? And it begs for the whole neighborhood. Every developer comes in and wants an exemption, whatever they buy, because they all say it's the only way it can make it work, even though they knew what they were buying. So I don't see any reason why to give this project a height exemption and not flush with its abutting buildings. And then third, and this has come up in several meetings, the concept of a community roof deck at that corner of Charles Street and Cambridge. For years there have been problems with the Beacon Hill pub. Hopefully under new leadership it won't be, but it's been noisy and reckless. A roof deck invites all sorts of behavior that's in that area. And again, we don't know what's going to happen, but it's certainly there's a lot of chances of something that size and that is communally owned by the residents or possibly the users of the hotel. I don't think is a great idea. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, next we have is John Corey. John, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having some public comment. I listened to the presentation. You guys have a long night, so I try won't be too long. I would actually also agree with Mr. Cook on this case. I'm a member of the Beacon Hill Architecture Committee on the Civic Association, but I'm speaking here today as I've been away, and I'm looking back at this project, and I'm very concerned about this anchoring Charles Street in our neighborhood. So John Corey, Mount Vernon Street in Beacon Hill. And like others have mentioned, the guidelines talk about contemporary designs, that they need to fit within the context, within the compatibility, the scale, color, materials, such and such. The key word is may. So it allows for contemporary designs if it fits the context. And I would argue that this does not fit the context. Just looking at the picture here, anybody can see it doesn't fit the context. So I'd like to just say that it's great to have a project done on this location. It certainly needs investment. Certainly revitalizing Silver Place would be a real gift to the community. But just the address alone, 155 Charles Street, tells us that this was part of Charles Street. And it does face, a good chunk of it faces Charles Street. And I think that it should be compatible with the size, scale, materials of Charles Street. You have examples across the street, a new building called the Whitney. That's in the district like this property that fits in very contextually, the brick, the massing, the proportions. Even next door to it, the parking garage is a rather vernacular design, but definitely seemingly fitting within the context of the street. Another Italianate row houses next to this. The facade to me feels random and unrelated to anything else in the area, even on Charles Street, even on Cambridge Street. I just don't see any of these kind of inverted proportions and these large scale windows anywhere along that street. So I don't think it relates to anything there either. I would ask the commission to feel comfortable, even after all this time, to deny the project as it is not appropriate in this location. Does it rise to the Whitney? Does it rise to 66 Beacon or 68 Beacon, the other anchors of Charles Street? I did a site visit on Audubon Circle, which used to be a circle, and now it's a four-way intersection. Those buildings were done contextually. The facades are brought down to the ground. They used the topography of the lots actually to create interest in the architecture, kind of like some buildings in New York on the angles with Broadway and things of that sort. So I would just ask the commission to really look at this and really make the hard decision that it just does not fit here. So please consider that in your deliberation. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Next up we have is Phillips Street. Phillips Street, go ahead. Sorry, you can't change your name.
Thank you. Andrew Henson here. I would like to echo those comments as well. We have been trying for a year with Road and their attorneys to give proper public feedback. They have refused to accept this public feedback, unlike other projects in the neighborhood. So can you please, if you would, scroll to the photo that shows the mechanicals of the deck, please? Because the mechanicals of the deck protrude far above this, and each angle that we look at is... Are we not scrolling? Thank you. Well, I meant the from the street view, please. That'll work. So those the mechanicals in the deck there that we can barely see on this image contain an elevator. We were told at a civic association meeting an 8-foot fence would be surrounding mechanicals on the roof. That is way over the height limit. I'd assume an elevator would have to allow a height variance. The height variance was taken off when it was in front of the Beacon Hill Association, so I'm not sure where that's coming from. Secondly, top shelf there is not in a butter. It's actually 98 West Cedar, 96 West Cedar, and of course Charles Street, and those are 4-story buildings. This would absolutely dwarf that. And then, of course, with the mechanicals on the rooftop up and down Phillips Street, where I clearly live, we'd have our views blocked to the river. Not only that, if you're on Longfellow Bridge looking back towards Beacon Hill, it will completely take out the symmetry of the hill and the beauty of the old architecture as you look from the bridge up on Beacon Hill. Finally, the rooftop deck is not, as far as I can tell, within your guidelines. HVAC components, if you go to, was it A9? I mean, I've just heard a few other projects where you really nitpick the roof decks, so I can't imagine you'd allow this one. But I'm not sure. Finally, in A5, it does allow for contemporary design, but again, size and scale. The FAR on this building, as well, I'm not sure now, but as it was proposed of September 23rd, the FAR was a 5.7. Across the street, it's a 3.3, and Top Shelf's a 3.8. So this is substantially more massed. I would ask the commission, there was substantial objection on this project from the neighbors, from the abutters. Please reject this project until the project is ready to work with the abutters and create a better solution for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, I do believe that is it for public comment. Let me just confirm that there are none that have come in through email. There are none that came in through email. So Mark, I will close public comment for this application and turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you. Let me just briefly address a couple of the comments, because I just want to make clear again, as we said earlier, certainly for the benefit of anyone who wasn't here, or even just as a recap, our jurisdiction is limited and our purview is quite narrow. And so anything that has to do with things like the allowed height of the building impacts other than with respect to the architecture to abutters or the community in general with respect to things like noise and the use of the building and so forth, those are properly in the venue of zoning, and they are strictly outside our jurisdiction. So we can't adjudicate those issues, as real as they might be, those concerns, as real as they might be, to the extent that they're outside our jurisdiction. And so we really need to concern ourselves simply with our narrow mandate and our limited jurisdiction, which is architectural and historical appropriateness. We do have a standing policy that we won't adjudicate an application that may need zoning relief until that zoning relief has been obtained. It is our firm understanding that we have confirmed with the city that necessary zoning relief has been obtained for this project. And so that includes issues like the height limit. It includes issues like the use of the building and so forth. And so, well, I appreciate that there are concerned neighbors that have what may well be legitimate concerns about those impacts. They're simply outside our jurisdiction, and we really can't concern ourselves with them. So having said that, let me just open the discussion by thanking Ruthie and the team again for the thoughtful consideration of our earlier feedback. I will also just add for the record that we have had 2 prior meetings to hear about this design, one a formal hearing and the other an advisory review. The Civic Association, as I would understand, has held multiple meetings. The city has held, I would understand, as part of the normal part of the zoning process, meetings as well. And so I think, at least as I understand it, this project has been pretty well advertised to the public. All of our documents are public and online, and so the design proposals have been available for some months now. And so I think, at least with respect to the concern about public awareness, all of the necessary efforts that this office and Nick in particular would normally make have been made. And I think that the Civic Association has likewise, in its traditional role in this regard, been quite active in trying to basically encourage conversation among the community. So then to the particulars. So thanks again, Ruthie and the team. I had myself, and I know other commissioners had given you feedback about particular aspects of the design. And I know there was some concern, not at all unreasonable, for example, on the behalf of Commissioner Feingold, that we not decorate this like a birthday cake. And that was a wise counsel. I agree with that. And I like the direction you have taken. You use the very two words that I think I used with Nick, which is richness and refinement. That's really all I was looking for with respect to trying to worry the details of particularly the ground level storefront uh, treatment of materials and so forth. I like personally the approach to providing a little more oomph, to use a non-technical term, to the cornices at the top, the cornice at the top, and the sort of transition from the ground level to the floors above. I think it is suggestive in a subtle but meaningful way of the history of those elements historically in the neighborhood without asserting itself too much and detracting from an otherwise, I think, pretty coherent sort of stylistic program in the building. And in particular, although we didn't really dwell on it, I quite like the additional details of the ground level storefront with respect to just the window surrounds, the sort of chamfer, for lack of a better word. We kind of breezed by it, but in the outside of the window opening, I think that's a really elegant detail. And the addition of some additional texture to the terracotta elements, so they're a little more three-dimensional, which is nicely harmonized with, again, these rethought cornices and so forth. So all to say, notwithstanding my sort of stumbling through what I was trying to say last time about what I was looking for, I think you did an admirable job in responding to it, and I like what I see. And I'll go ahead. Commissioner Feingold has his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought it was a very good presentation. There are things I really like about, can we put a sketch back? No. I like the three-dimensional. No, the proposal. No.
Yeah, what are you looking for, Mo?
Going the wrong way. Well, like that. Okay. Well, I have no objection to the height of the building. The height of the building, and we have this extraordinary opportunity we've talked about, which is who would just love to design a building at this particular corner? And I think we first talked about the transition along Charles Street. And I think that the facade of the Charles Street elevation is, as was the last presentation, is very quiet and very good. I like the way it turns the corner, and seeing that the unit plans were developed that alternating the top floor and then the second floor turn the corner with similar proportioned windows. The other floors, of course, have the larger windows, but the fact that the scale of those windows repeat down the facade of the elevation, I think really help turn the corner. And turning the corner, of course, you pointed out in your presentation last time, was you're facing the Charles Street station, and we're facing the opportunity that we've had as the historic district has gotten expanded this year or last year, to include the first 20 feet of Cambridge Street. We're going to have many examples, and they've already started with a lot of graphic issues to deal with as over the years. And I think it picks up the dynamic quality of the movement of the circle, of the cars, and the architecture across the street. I'm not concerned about it. It looks a little wavy, but it probably in reality it will hardly be sensed. The two details I disappointed with, contrary to the chairman, which is I think the articulation of the cornice and the base of the wall, brick of the masonry, is too hairy. It's fun. I think it was better with just the soldier courses because it subtly, it did very quietly in the masonry building, change the coursing and articulate the top and bottom. I think this is a decorative feature, which is not welcomed. The other detail I was not pleased with was I understood you have under the soffit leading to the storefronts a some kind of stepped element in the ceiling of the exterior, and you're going to make that out of, I guess, some molded metal looking like it's pretending to be a molding, which I think is really not a good idea. That's to me is inappropriate on all counts. You do need to make a transition between the glass wall and the soffit of the wall above, yes, but there maybe is a better way to do it than with a multiple faceted piece of metal that's meant to look like somebody's molding in their home library. Oh, and lastly, I think the lighting is good. I like the catenary arches in the walkway. I like the signage, the flat signage we've always talked about as having a good panel for the flat signage. But you also are indicating in your vertical panels that there's signage on the piers, if I recall reading it right. And that is the wrong place. Yes, right there. That is not what we suggested, and I think it's wrong. I think you need to have a progression of hanging signs and using the underside of the soffit to do that, and that leads around to Charles Street and the historic signage, which we've been working so hard over the years to get with one pendant sign and one broad sign. The basic proportions of the building, I think, remain good, and I just wish you would find a way to calm down this thing that looks like a hair, like a comb. It just, you have interesting, the hotel across the street has similar, not like this. There must be a way to quiet that down. And your wish to mitigate the color of the brick is a little disappointing because I thought the darker masonry was good, but what you're proposing is probably very nice as well. I really commend you for the work you've done, and I look forward to seeing its completion one day. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to jump in and just reply to that. Mark, I didn't notice you had any questions, but maybe before I forget, do you mind if I just quickly address Mo's responses, if that's okay?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, Ruthie, do you mind, are you sharing, or maybe?
I'm not sharing, but I can share.
That'd be great. Nick, just if that's okay, because
totally
Ruthie
fine.
knows the slides a little bit better.
Yeah, totally fine.
So maybe Ruthie, we did bring some of our other oh, there you go. Good, she's right on it. So Mo, we appreciate your comments on this, and I think it's something that we've been working internally in the office to get the right sense of, as Ruthie mentioned, a bit of texturing and a little bit of shadowing to reinforce that edge. And here you can sort of see a couple other options that we had looked at over the last couple of weeks. So, the Whitney actually has a very similar condition that the stepped in and out soldier coursing. So they actually basically have it's a little different proportion, but it's basically the same. And so we took that and sort of kind of flexed it a little bit more. And I think there are subtleties in this that we could easily work on. which could be to, you know, take a little bit less out of the recessed brick, so the shadowing is a little more subtle. That's something we talked a little bit about. And we also talked a little bit about the proportions of the top, from the top level of windows up to the roof line. And if, you know, it was becoming a little bit equal. And so that's where we sort of shifted a little bit to kind of creating a proportional difference on the top.
Yeah.
So I think we have some thoughts on it. We have some options, and not to, I don't want to say we're not convinced, but I think that, as we all know, the devil's in the details a little bit. Exactly how far out we are, how far we are with these steps will matter. And that's one of the reasons we want to make sure we build the mock-up properly.
Yeah, and I think too, the other thing to think about is it doesn't have to be every other brick as well. It could be a couple bricks out front and one recess. But yeah, we have been trying to find that right balance between bringing that more emphasis that was discussed, but still having it have some subtlety to it.
Look, you're going to keep studying. Look, you're not.
I know, forever. We just want to make sure you knew we were still grinding on it.
I cannot imagine that you're still in a concept phase, maybe a little beyond that. I think by the time you get to final working drawings, it's going to resolve itself.
I think you're right. And then I just want to touch base, Ruthie, can you jump to the soffit detail? Because I want to make sure, because I think this is a subtle piece that we are feeling pretty good about, but I want to make sure that it's so what we're proposing is actually a terracotta. So it's a contemporary brick, right? It's fired in the same way. And we're using, and you can see on the top right is just an image of it, and the bottom is some of our detail thoughts. So it is similar to a molding condition, I think, that you're sort of referencing, but we just were using a different material, which is the terracotta. So we looked at it in metal, but it actually just felt like it needed a little bit more of that secondary texturing. So you know, I think I just want to make sure that was clear. So we think that using a masonry product, it's just a little different, makes a lot of sense here. So and we'll, as you know, we'll probably continue to discuss that as well.
I think that's good. It's not a metal break front thing, but it's the curvature of the middle section looked like a sort of a traditional molding curve, and you know and I just thought maybe there's a way to handle that.
I think this will be all custom, and we've been talking to Boston Valley Terracotta, and we've run all this through them, and so they can do this is all be custom in terms of the shapes, but in terms of how all these details, there'll be some evolution in exactly that as well. So I think that's
more
something that will
architectural and less like it was cut on a lathe.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then I think the last part on the signage, I think what we were trying to do is create a signage package that was at least addressing 3 different type signs. And I can certainly appreciate the, you know, the sign above the door and the blade sign are a little bit more consistent. And we do know there is this flat sign on the vertical in the district as well. And so I think we're up to kind of still pursuing that, but we do know once it gets further along and there will be a tenant, and that whole process will have to go forward on its own. But we did want to try to set up at least a kit of parts in terms of, we're assuming a tenant might not have all these signs. They would just probably have 1 or maybe 2. But I think that's a little bit of the question. We just wanted to try to manage it as much as possible without knowing who this.
Thank you. My criticism of it was that we spoke last time that the blade sign, so we call it blade sign, sort of be on the soffit. It would be as you walked along this new building and approached Charles Street, it would begin to connect you with the historic district, and the graphics would flow easily. Look, but that's all. You know, I'm not going to.
Yeah, I understand. I do believe we think that a blade side of this sort of size that we're showing on the brick pier could find itself on the terracotta piers easily around the corner if that's the desire of the tenant. So that's what we were trying to set forth.
Well, good job.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Eric.
No, I guess I mean, it's, I appreciate the concerns of some of the community, and I think I just wanted to touch base really quickly that just to clarify, and I know we're not here to arbitrate zoning, but the height of the zoning is actually as of right for this site. So that was not a zoning violation on this project. Earlier in the process, we did have a 6-story building, and that is where through the process we lowered that to be consistent with the zoning height. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear to the people on listening. And then on the roof deck is specifically of use for the residents of the building. It will not be connected, even though the development client owns the Whitney as well as owns the adjacent building on the other side of Silver Place. The use of the roof deck in this, it will be only for the residents of 155. I just want to make sure that was clear. And it is only an outdoor space. There's no interior space associated with it. Yes, the elevator does need to go up because that is an ADA and a mass accessible board that we have to provide equal access to anybody who lives in this building, that if they're in a wheelchair, they need to be able to get up to the roof deck. So that is just required under the basic building code for any new building of this nature in the city. So I just want to touch on those two pieces.
Okay, thank you. And again, just to reiterate, it's neither here nor there as far as we're concerned, because again, it's not within our jurisdiction, so it can't be part of our determination in any case. But appreciate you clarifying that. Let me just respond to, maybe even echo Commissioner Feingold's questions, comments about the soffit and the transition and so forth. And I think I just want to point out, he used a nice, he articulated better than I did before about, I think, what we hope to achieve here when he said, we want it to be architectural rather than something. I think the way he said it was just turned on a lathe. And the more blunt maybe version of that is, we want to avoid something. I was hoping to avoid something generic. And so I know, there were comments about, well, can we harmonize the storefronts a little more to the other modern buildings on Cambridge Street? I'd rather not do that. I really like, for example, it's very subtle, but you can see it in this image, the metalwork in the surrounds of the windows now has this extra dimension, which I think is a really nice, very subtle refinement. It adds a little richness, as Ruthie said. And so it's a bit more architectural than just something that feels like, it's the sort of standard issue window for a commercial shop front. And so to the extent that we can make this transition even more architectural, as Commissioner Feingold said, fantastic, that's great, yes. So I think I don't know what that looks like, but I would affirm that it's a really important element of this. The building is deliberately, I think, and for a building of this era, appropriately austere. So I think when we have features like this that attempt to add, some diversity of shape and color and texture and materials, they do a lot of heavy lifting in terms of the architecture of the building. And so I think certainly it's appropriate to worry those details even further. And so I just want to affirm that I'm not disagreeing with my colleague at all in that regard. I like what you've done. If we can make it stronger, more architectural, then by all means, we should do that. Just a question, Eric, with respect to the signage, and this may seem like a silly question, but just for our own edification, and so we can think about the signage plan going forward, understanding, of course, let me ask it as a question. Obviously the tenant of this space is going to want signage that reflects its branding, right? And we do allow, obviously, in the historic district, signage that does that, including logos and so forth, obviously within the confines of the rest of the guidelines and so forth. And so just as a maybe silly clarifying question, and I realize you've just used the word signage to just indicate that it will be signage, but it's not necessarily contemplated that you would necessarily have some kind of uniform treatment of the signage with respect to typefaces and coloring and things like that. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think
Yeah.
we were just trying to manage it a bit. And, you know, I
Yeah.
think we want to be deliberate about the things that we're doing. And I think the big part of this, which, I mean, we just listened to a very long conversation about signage on the previous project and the
Right.
violation. And I think just we want to make sure it's done tasteful and it reflects the, you know, the architecture of the building. And so we're trying to manage it a little bit, I'll just say, but where it comes and what it is and who it is, we have no clue at this point. So we're just trying to give options for us to have something
Yeah.
that
No,
if you see it later and it's a signage package proposal, you're like, oh, right, that's right. They talked about a blade sign this size at this location that's consistent with at least the building architecture, because we may not be part of that future
right.
discussion.
I
So,
appreciate that. Yeah,
yeah.
I think I'll just speak for myself, but I think we have an opportunity here at least to get as close as we can to um, uh, making as consistent with the rest of the architecture as possible the portions of the signage we can control, right? So if we're going to decide, to Commissioner Feingold's comments, well, they ought to be blade signs, you know, and then maybe they ought to be, let's worry about the details of the brackets and so forth. So the graphics and so forth that go on the sign, it's going to be up to the tenant and so forth. But let's try to control as much as we can where the signs go, their proportions, the materials, the basic design, because these are, again, are elements that are right at street level. They're where people are interacting with the building. It's this very prominent corner. All the things that Commissioner Feingold said. It's this important, interesting, complicated, difficult transition from one commercial street to another through this busy intersection. And so we have a real opportunity here to do something interesting that will stick with us despite tenants coming and going, you know, for the visual vocabulary of this super important gateway to the street. So let's do as much of that as we can within reason here. Okay. What else? I did have a question, Eric. I don't know if to what extent, or I don't remember to what extent we really talked about this, but I'll just ask it as a question. Again, I like the additional thought you've given to the materials, the texture. There's adding some more of these refinements here. Just what about this transition between the street and sort of this granite course you have at the bottom? Did you think any more about that? I'm not saying I dislike what you've got, but I'm just curious. Did you is that different at all from last time? And
It's only, you know what, it's only different from the standpoint we did have some side lights that landed on the ground next to some of the doors, and we pulled those side lights out and right, thank you, Ruthie, and we pulled it through underneath the terracotta. Yeah.
right. Oh, okay. Yes. Thank you for right. I did not notice that. I see. Okay.
And I think we, you know, it felt like a more appropriate way to handle the transition to the sidewalk. But
Yeah.
so that is a change that we did make. Thanks,
Yeah.
Ruthie.
No, and I think I see the intention there.
Yes.
Right. Okay. That's
Well grounded.
helpful. Sorry, Mo.
I said, I think it's a well-grounded detail.
Yeah.
Not going to the ground is well grounded, you know, but not.
Yeah. Right. It kind of establishes that
Right.
first transition a little more emphatically, which is good, I think. Okay. What else? Yeah. So where does that leave us? It sounds like, to sum up, we've got a little more work to do on the cornices, the comb, as Commissioner Feingold said. We've got a little more work to do on this transition between, let's just, for lack of better say, the first floor and the upper floors, the soffit. We clearly want to worry the details of the signage program, such as it is, or such as it's going to be, and the lighting. We were going to ask for a mock-up, so I'm very happy to see that you have already anticipated that and included that in the proposal. And I was attempting to articulate to Nick what I had in mind when we were talking about that, because we both agreed that we need that. And what you proposed, I think, is exactly what I had in mind. It's not building out like an entire portion of the exterior, but enough of the like a almost like a board where you'd show samples of the materials so we can see them all together. The window frames and the terracotta, the granite, the brick, and so forth. So I think, unless Nick just chime in here if there's a piece of it that's missing, but I think that's between the two, exactly what I had in mind, just so we can see the
That's, yeah,
materials.
that's exactly what you were thinking. Yep.
And okay, dumb question, but I'll just ask it again. I ask a lot of dumb
Please.
questions. This is in scale, right? So that the actual
Yeah, it's
bricks
in
and-
miniature, but it's in scale. So
Yeah,
yeah. So they will be scaled elements, and you know, I think we actually really use these mock-ups. We don't do it out of you know, torture. We make sure we have the flashing details properly, and we do all the things that we need to do. So we're intending to make sure these they're real scale. They're just this window isn't a full-size window just because it would be, the mock-up would be obviously huge. So these are in miniature, but the transitional moments and the materials will be full scale, if that makes
All
sense.
the
the bricks
is-
are actual size. The
Bricks are
bricks are
actual size.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And these terracotta elements as well?
Yes, they will be actual size as well.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
great.
we would make this exact transition where it lands, the exact replica of it, so.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So let's see, commissioners, anything else that you want to see some further work on?
Mark,
Yeah,
did you
yes.
want to do another hearing or did you want to do a subcommittee? Because it sounds like the vast majority of the project is okay, according to the commission. Would working out the fine details in a subcommittee be more efficient?
Let's see.
Which would be open to the public, by the way.
Right. Yeah, I think
Would personally rather vote it through.
you'd rather just have a regular hearing, Mo?
I would, I have a personal reason why I would like to see this approved with some, you know, tonight with, you know, follow-on comments, you know, approved with your various suggestions.
Well, I think what Nick had been suggesting is we could, and Nick, I don't want to speak for you here, but correct me if I'm wrong here, but we could, in principle, approve in substantial part the application with certain details to be further
Remanded to a subcommittee.
Yeah, remanded to a subcommittee for final design. In other words, so we would approve it, you know, and deny without prejudice, for example, the soffit, the lighting plan, the signage plan, and
the cornice.
And the cornices, exactly, thank you. And remand that to a subcommittee, again, open to the public, which you would, of course, be welcome to serve on.
And we don't need a 48-hour notice.
For that separate meeting.
Correct.
Oh, sorry. I was going to have a question about that.
Is that a motion?
No, not yet. I'm just asking if you'd be comfortable with that. If you
Well,
because you could be on the subcommittee.
Well, we come to a different watershed moment. I was going to save it till later, but I'm afraid that this is my last meeting on the commission. In August, we moved from the Hill to a retirement center in Lexington. And I was advised that I could still remain a member of the commission as long as we still own the property. Well, we finally sold the condo, and the closing is actually this coming Tuesday. So according to the rules and regulations, I guess that that puts me out of the commission. And so if that is the fact, as Nick has told me, I will respectfully resign with great regret at the end of the meeting, because I really enjoy these conversations, these challenges. I think the commission is a really interesting group. You do a great job of chairing it. Nick, a wonderful public person. And in 3 years, I've really got stuck on it. But I worried between August and now about one thing that you touched on earlier, that because I wasn't living here, I wasn't able to get around to see all the sites as I used to when I lived in town, and see the conditions that were being discussed. And I thought that was, for a while, that worked through the winter when things were quiet. But you're right, I didn't get a chance to look at some of the things which I would ordinarily have done. So so timing is right. So I just have to conclude. I was going to write to the mayor and the clerk and to you all this week, but just too many things got in the way of finding a way to say that. So I'm saying it publicly on the record, and I thank you all for your time and your courtesies. And we had some nice discussions, Mark, and may they continue.
Commissioner Feingold, I am heartbroken.
What's that?
I said, Commissioner Feingold, I am heartbroken.
Oh, thank
You
you.
are a character. You are talented. Ah, you are already missed and you're still here.
Somebody will come take my place.
No one's going to take your place.
Well, thank you. I would.
You guys got the commission of the year, for God's sake. Don't screw it up.
I will echo Arian's comments, Mo. It's been a privilege and honor to serve with you. I was aware that you would likely need to be transitioning off the commission at some point. We're very sad to see you go. Your contributions are tremendous. Your obvious experience, wisdom, and distinguished career have been a tremendous asset to this commission and the community. We were very lucky to have you for the time that we did, and your wisdom, I think, will echo throughout the generations to come. And we're all stewards of this thing, after all, and you've been a great steward. So with that, we thank you. And I think your contributions, in particular to the current project, have been demonstrative of all of that. And so I certainly understand why you wanted to wrap this up tonight. I think I can say with some confidence that we are very close on this project. I think as a practical matter, we do have these 3 or 4 issues that are going to require our further attention. So I don't know that we can get to a full-on approval tonight. But I think I can say with some confidence that we're going to wind up in a place that's pretty close to and reflective of your very constructive and thoughtful contributions to the deliberations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there no reason why we can't approve it with, with the following modifications?
Yeah, I think we could, if there's consensus, what we could do is vote to approve with provisos that these I think, Nick, I mean, just weigh in here, but one way or the other, we need to. I think we're going to have. What we would do is, I think what we would do is we would approve the project with the exception. We would approve it in part and deny it in prejudice without part. We would approve it. We deny without prejudice with respect to the cornices, the soffit, the signage plan, and the lighting plan, and approve with respect to the rest.
Yes.
Nick, how does that sound? And then I think to Nick's question, and in particular, because Commissioner Feingold wouldn't be with us next month, unfortunately, I think given that the remaining items are manageable in number and scope, that we just come and bring it back to a full hearing rather than a subcommittee. I also think it's such a high profile project and clearly notwithstanding the efforts of the office and the Civic Association to get the word out, it does feel like you know, we need to make this as public a process as possible, which means sticking to the regular schedule that people would be aware of. I hope they would be aware of, and so forth, just in case someone didn't get the memo about a special hearing or whatever. So I think that's what we would do. If there's consensus, Arian, Annette, are you okay with that?
I'm sorry, there's somebody on the phone trying to get through. What's your name, Andrew? His name is Andrew. He was trying to get through. He said he didn't like what was being said.
Okay, well, we have taken public comment, and I'm afraid the public comment period is closed as we
Yeah.
advertised in the beginning, so we can't reopen it to public comment at this point.
Okay, sorry, Andrew. I think that's Phillip Street.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you repeat that question? I was interrupted with that call.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I think the way to proceed would be that we would take a vote, we'd make a motion and take a vote and to approve the project in part and deny it without prejudice in part. And specifically, we would deny without prejudice the portions of the application dealing with the cornices, the soffit transition, the lighting plan, and the signage plan, and approve with respect to the rest. With that meaning that those items that were denied without prejudice would simply come back for further deliberation at the next hearing, rather than a subcommittee.
So
I
moved.
second that moment.
Second that.
Oh,
Okay, okay, so we've got to, I'm just want to make it clear on the record.
yeah, we got it.
Yeah, okay, Nick, is that enough? Or do you want me to restate the motion?
No,
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so it has been moved and seconded to approve in part and deny in prejudice without part, denied in without prejudice with respect to the soffit, the transition, the cornice, the lighting plan, signage plan. And it's been duly moved and seconded, and so we will vote on the motion. Commissioner Allen,
aye.
Commissioner Feingold,
Aye.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Aye.
and Commissioner Kiefer votes aye. Okay, to the roadie team, to William and everyone, thanks again for your patience and your forbearance and all this, for your thoughtful consideration of the comments and the excellent presentation. I know we're not quite over the finish line, but this gets us quite a ways closer to it. So thanks again. And I hope this is helpful. And we'll look forward to reconvening to see. Let me just try to give you some further direction. I think you heard from Commissioner Feingold with respect to the cornice and
Yep.
the soffits, and with respect
The only
to
question I had was on the light. I don't remember hearing any comment on the lighting, but I'm happy.
Yeah,
I know we presented the two schemes, but that would be my only question.
yeah. So that's the kind of thing where it's like you almost wish you could mock that up too.
Yep.
I don't know how you do that, but is there
yeah,
a
it's
way
a
to
little
do
tougher,
that?
but we can certainly have samples, and we will have a soffit that we need to mock up. Yeah, I mean, we can figure. I think we can take that on. I just wanted to make sure I didn't hear anything different. We can figure that out. I don't think.
And the
mocking up is-
integration of the fixture within the soffit, I think, is something that could be mocked up.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah, exactly, William. And you know, I think just maybe some further detail in the renderings. Again, we understand with all the
It's fine.
caveats
No
of
problem.
how it's
I just
going
want to make
look.
sure I
Yeah.
understand. Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
no problem.
I will tell you just by way of comments, we've already voted, but I mean, I appreciate, I don't think there's any issue with the notion that, okay, you've got this overhang, even though it's a pretty busy intersection, it's pretty big, you're going to create a zone of darkness, as it were, and you need to address that somehow. I think the direction in general is tasteful, it's appropriate. It's just a question of how much is too much. And we just want to worry that detail. So I think it's more of a how,
All
not
good.
what. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
No worries. I just want to make sure I didn't miss something.
Great.
What is the depth of the overhang, please?
It varies. Ruthie,
It
I'm gonna
varies
put
a
her
little
on the
bit as
spot.
it goes around the corner.
Right, I know, but from what to what? Do you remember?
Around, it's around 8 to 10 feet at that corner on Charles Street, and then it
Okay.
goes back to 4.
Your voice is gobbling.
Okay.
8 to 10 at the corner where it's
Yeah.
curved at the most,
Yeah.
and then it's down to 3.5 or ish on the
Yeah.
smaller.
Or around 4 along Cambridge Street.
Mark, I
Or
don't like, I don't think that's a terrible problem of darkness, but it should be explored in greater
Yeah,
detail.
yeah, right, without being too again
Right.
emphatic or decorative or whatever. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
we agree, I'll be honest. So we
Yeah.
want to make sure we get the lighting right. So
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing maybe.
And if anybody ever rents one of those stores, there'll be plenty of spillage of light.
Yeah,
there will
true.
be a ton of spillage of light.
That's a good point for sure.
It did come up in the community process, though, the kind of concern for lighting and safety on that corner. So this is something that we do want to make sure that we're addressing and ensure that it can be on dimmers and other things so that it hits the right light levels.
Right.
But we're happy to explore that more.
Okay, I'll also just observe for what it's worth, as you know, I'm sure there are exterior lighting fixtures on the Whitney, so we
There
have
are.
thought about this,
Mhm.
and it's come up in context of the infill building and so forth. So okay, well, thanks again for your time. We'll look forward to the next iteration, and thanks for coming in.
Well, I just, sorry, I have to thank Commissioner Feingold for all his thoughtful time and words. It's amazing. You're a giant in our industry, and you know we all respect what you've done over your career. And to be part of your final night on the commission is amazing. So thank you for all your time and effort, and your
Thank you.
career has been amazing. So
Thank
good
you.
luck to you, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You're very kind. Good luck to
Night.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're almost done, but not quite. We have, that's the end of design review. Is it just administrative now, Nick?
Yes, sorry. Let me bring that up.
Okay, commissioners, any comments, questions, concerns about any or recusals on any of the administrative review items? I will note for the record, I will abstain from the vote on 37 Beacon. Anyone else with anything on these?
Nay.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve administrative items?
No, because you gotta take it to the public.
Wow, sorry.
Oh,
I think I could not sustain my record of 2 consecutive hearings of not forgetting. It's probably never going to happen again. Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
you're welcome.
Does anyone want to be heard on any or all of the administrative review items, and only the administrative review items? We will not take public comment on any other item on the agenda other than administrative review at this time. If you want to be heard on any of the items listed specifically here on this page under administrative review, raise your hand in the Zoom and Nick will acknowledge you.
Okay. All right, first up we have is Rochelle. Rochelle, go ahead.
Beacon Hill Civic Association. The mortar should be revised. 25 South Brussels Street. The mortar should be revised from type N to type O to meet guideline B5C, which states that no mortar of a mixture stronger than 1 part cement to 2 parts lime to 7 to 9 parts sand shall be used to allow for the expansion of bricks during freeze-thaw cycles. Type N mortar risks falling the soft historic bricks. There are ASTM C270 type O certified mortar mix products that can provide the compressive strength of type N as a substitute. And to comment, and personally, I reiterate this as the next door neighbor at 27 with the facade disaster. End of comment.
Thanks, Rochelle. Just for your record, I am looking into your property. We're working on it. And I'm trying to get in touch with this applicant. So if the commission wants to make a provisos to change the mortar type, I can look into that. We can do that if that's the commission wishes to do so.
Yeah, Nick, if you can, this is still
Sure.
in your wheelhouse, so if you could follow up on that, be greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah. Would you mind making the provisos though when we do make the vote?
Or
we
I mean, it's still under administrative, and it seems to me you've got enough. I trust you. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. I'm okay. Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. All right. Thank you, Rochelle. And I will be in touch shortly with a follow-up on our email. Okay. Next up we have is Gerald. Gerald, go ahead. Gerald.
Maybe he had his hand up before. Oh, there he
Okay.
is.
I'm here.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm joining this conversation a little late, and it might not be the appropriate time. But I have interest in many buildings on Beacon Hill, from 7 to 11 Charles Street, 80 Charles Street, 38 Charles Street, 33 River Street, and 56 River Street. So if I'm not in the appropriate time, I'll call back when you have your next Zoom meeting. But I want to express my opinion as a lifelong resident and former owner of the Lucas Market on Charles Street. So I grew up in Beacon Hill. I know it very well. And please let me know when the appropriate time that I can share my thoughts.
Gerald, what property are you commenting on? Is it something on administrative review?
Well, I misread the administrative review because 52 River Street abuts 56 River Street. When I saw 52, I thought it was the property next to mine, but it's not. I made a mistake. And I thought it was River Street, but it's not. 52 caught my eye, and I'm wrong. I have 56 River Street, and I see it now. Repoint 55, item number 26.0477.
Yeah.
BH. So when am I allowed to comment and share my thoughts about the wonderful work that people are doing?
Do you want to make a comment about 56 River Street, Mr. Aiello?
Yes, sir. That's my property, and it's I got notice for the Zoom call, and I said, "Oh well, let me give a call and see what happens." I'm familiar with this type of communication. I'll do it.
Right. Well, I guess first of all, apologies if you've been waiting a long time. For future reference, items under administrative review don't require the applicant to come to the hearing. So you don't need to, if it's listed under administrative review rather than design review, you don't need to be present at the hearing for us to adjudicate it. So we appreciate very much you being here. But strictly speaking, it's not necessary. We do have your application, and I believe all the information that we need to make a decision, and I believe we're going to approve it. So unless there's anything else, I don't think it's necessary, but thanks for coming.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry for interrupting, but
nope,
not at all. All right. Appreciate you being here.
I didn't know, what to do. Like I said, I have interest in a half a dozen or more buildings on Beacon Hill, and I'm concerned about Beacon Hill in general, as well as my own property, singularly at 56 River Street.
You can always write a letter to Nick expressing your appreciation if you like.
Nick Armada, AITP.
That's me. Thank you.
I know it's you. I'm looking at you right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Shoot me a note, Gerald. I'm happy to help you out.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm pretty good with my project at 56 River Street. So I apologize for interrupting this meeting.
Not at
No
all.
problem. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Anyone
All
else?
right. Thank you, Gerald.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks. Take care. All right. Okay. All right. All right. And I think we have, sorry, Gerald. I'm gonna mute you there again. And then I think we have Andrew one more time.
And again, just on administrative review, we're not taking comments on the Charles Street project anymore.
Okay.
Thank
Andrew,
you,
if you-
Mr. Chair. For administrative review then, for the historic Beacon Hill District architectural guidelines, could you review for us section A5?
How does that pertain to one or more of the administrative review items now before us? We're taking public comment on the specific administrative.
He
he's gone?
disconnected himself. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to close public comment for this application.
Okay. Thank you again, Commissioner Allen, for reminding me for the 100th time. Maybe on 200, I'll remember, but I appreciate it. And we actually had some comments, so that's good. Okay. let's see. Yes, do we have a motion to approve the administrative review items?
Motion to approve.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, so it has been moved and seconded. And again, for the record, I'll abstain from 37 Beacon. We'll vote Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Feingold,
Aye.
Commissioner Given,
Aye.
and Commissioner Kiefer abstains with respect to 37 Beacon and votes aye with respect to the rest. Okay, administrative review items are approved. I think we're just about done. Staff updates, Nick.
I'm muted. So this is wild, but anyway, so staff updates, just a couple extra things. We do have a new landmark here in the city of Boston, which is the Captain John Bussey House, which is over in Dorchester. If you're interested in checking out the study report that outlines the history or lays out the history, you can visit our website at boston.gov/landmarks. And then we do have 2 pending study reports. I think I mentioned this the last time. The Copley Plaza Hotel in Back Bay and Memorial Hall in Charlestown. So we're accepting public comment for those items. So that's it, and nothing pertaining to any updates related to the historic district.
Quick question. Are you talking about the Fairmont?
Yes.
That's not already, I'm surprised that's not already, really?
You'd be surprised at how many things are not
You're
landmarked
making-
here in the city of Boston.
You're making me scared. You're making me very, very
Chances are-
frightened.
Yeah. So yes. Cool. And that's all I have for updates. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Well, again, let me just reiterate, I think on behalf of a grateful commission and office and city, Mr. Commissioner Feingold, thank you for your distinguished service on this commission and for your further distinguished service to the architecture profession. You do honor to your profession and basically with a standard we all aspire to. So we thank you for that. Please don't be a stranger. I hope we'll see you around Beacon Hill from time to time. And you are welcome in any hearing at any time, of course, going forward, even if just as a spectator. So thank you again for your service.
Chairman, thank you very much. It's been an honor.
Thank you, Mo.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you so much, Mom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I have a question.
Oh, yes, please, go ahead.
Are our cell phones public?
You're wondering how he got your number?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they should. Gee, they should be.
Creativity.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. Well, let's talk offline. Can we adjourn, please?
Yes,
Oh,
okay,
sure.
so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstained?
Nay.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Aye.
See you down the road.
Bye,
Thanks.
Paul.
Good night.
Aye.
Good night, Mo.
See
Good
you.
night.